Today we're doing something a little bit different. Let's switch to the other scene. We are doing review with cool people. Say hello, cool people.
Hi, cool
Hello.
people.
Hello.
So we are here today with directly above me. You can see his icon. That's Squar.
Hello.
We have Michelle and Afe left and right on the top as well.
Hello.
Now, we were supposed to also be joined by two other people. One was Raincore, but unfortunately he's being held up talking on the phone. Ugh. And Telly, who unfortunately can't be here because she's too busy playing D&D. So, yeah. But the interesting thing about Telly's opinions is that she's very much... She was our balance, let's just say that much. But I think we've still got some balance in this session. But yeah. So... How is everybody doing today? We'll start it off with that. Good.
Chilling. It's a Saturday.
Afe?
A lot better now that I have power and internet back.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I've been incredibly busy. Otherwise good.
Yeah. Well, today we're going to be talking about some FF9 now. I want to point this out from the beginning, and I'm going to say this, even though I feel like it's incredibly obvious. There will be spoilers. If you do not want to be spoiled, do not watch this. Do not complain that we are spoiling things, because this is a review. Okay? Because I know what people on the internet are like. I'm putting this out there now. This is a review. It will contain spoilers. Some of them quite big spoilers, including talking about the final boss, because that's one of the points that's on the list. So do not, Thanks, Squaw. Right then. So today we're going to break this review up into 4 parts. Some parts clearer than others, apparently, from when I explain them. Part 1 will be headline points. Each person will give 3 positive points they like about the game and 3 negative points they don't like about the game. And if they match with someone else, the point will be in yellow, and basically then that other person can jump in. Then each person will give an out of 5 rating for a set of categories. Then we'll have a general discussion about anything that wasn't brought up in those 2 beginning parts. And then everyone will give a verbal conclusion, and we'll then give them a rating out of 10 to finish off. Which is the part that apparently I didn't explain very well, because no one gave me a rating without being prompted. So clearly I need to work on my explaining skills. But that's my fault, not theirs. Anyway, so... Anybody got any questions? Anyone in chat? I mean, I hope you guys all know now, but if anyone in chat has any questions for us, just let me know. Right. So I suppose we'll start with my positive points. I think the order's me, Mersh, Gua, Raincore, even though he's not here, and then Afe. Because I put you at the bottom, Afe, because you said you might be late.
Yeah, I was expecting to be late, but luckily enough, I'm not.
Okay, so I'm going to reveal... Should I reveal all 3 at once, or should I just do one at a time, do you think?
Leave that to you, I'd say.
Yeah.
Alright, I'll do one at a time. So, my first one, I think this is one that a lot of people said, was music. I think the music
Yeah.
in all the Final Fantasy series, but in particular this one, there's so many beautiful pieces of music in this game, for me. I love, one of my personal favourites is the Black Mage Village theme. I think it's just... really cool. It's different, I think, as well to a lot of what's in the game, but it doesn't feel out of place, sort of thing. And I know I sort of push into this a bit. Michelle, I know the music in this game has a very big significance for you. I don't know if you want to talk a bit about that.
I started playing violin when I was 8. This game came out when I was 10. So, really, I was just starting to learn how to play music and appreciate it when this came out, and I love the game anyway, so it kind of has been the staple of my background in keeping me going and playing violin, to the point where I actually met Uematsu himself and told him so, and he was just like, that's awesome, keep playing. So yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the biggest influences in my entire life.
Okay. I found you're a bit quiet. Also, if you want to mention it, I know that there was a song from this game that you heard on your very special day for you.
Yeah, my theme song, quote unquote, my Isle walk was Kingdom Hearts, but my husband's Isle Walk was Melodies of Life, because we wanted to get both of those in there. So, yeah.
Great piece of music right there.
Oh gosh,
Yeah, it's amazing.
it's a beautiful piano rendition. I'll have to see if I can find it.
Okay. Does anyone else want to mention anything else music-wise?
So yeah, I want to say that was part of my first one, and I will say the music. I still love listening to it to this day. Like I have the Final Fantasy IX piano collections on CD that I got from imported over from Japan. I listened to covers of like Rosa May and a few others. But I mean, yeah, it's always been super relaxing to me. If I'm ever stressed out, that's the type of music I'll go to is the Final Fantasy IX.
No matter what mood you're in, you can listen to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I'd like to add about the music is it seems to fit every area perfectly.
I'd agree with that.
Just, or it just adds that little bit of more ambience to the area. So many games get that wrong, yet Final Fantasy IX got it right.
Yeah. And I think there's so
I
many...
mean, Uematsu went out to Europe and went to like German castles and things to like really get the feel for the places.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So all of his effort was put in. Like, it was there.
I should point out, by the way, if we need to know anything about Final Fantasy, that's Michelle's job because she has that redeem on her channel. So she is like the walking encyclopedia.
I was gonna say, where's the random Final Fantasy IX fact?
Well, there was just one. That was just she just gave us one about the German thing. But yeah, I think there's so many great themes, and like I love Kuja's theme in the game, and particularly his the trance Kuja music. I love that a lot. I think that's really cool.
And just like the kind of subtle theming that he does with it, like with like the menu music is actually Hera's theme. And that's also like, what's the song called? It's called like The Place I Call Home.
Yeah.
And that basically is just like, ta-da, that's where Zidane's from. Like they give you that right off the bat. And you don't realize it till like disc 4.
Yeah. And then there's that slight variation of it for that castle, which I don't like talking about because it was the place where I taught 3 magic users to a no magic zone. I don't like talking about that. I still have traumatic thoughts about that. Yeah.
Oh, Elvert, yes, you're right. I'm sorry.
But yeah.
That's a tearing place.
Where I took 3 magic users to a no magic zone. No big deal.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's still doable.
Well, I did it. It was painful, but I did it. Anyway.
You did.
Any final points? Obviously, there's a whole music section later where I'm going to ask you guys your favourite piece of music, but is there any final points you want to bring up on music before we move on?
I mean, I could literally talk for 8 hours, so I'm good.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm good as well.
Let's move on to the next point, which was Vivi. Because
hey, my boy!
you can't not talk about Vivi. And I think, even though Tele's not here, one of her few positive points, because for those of you that don't know, Tele hates this game, but one of her few positive points was Vivi. And I think Vivi's just so adorable. Like,
so pure and innocent. It's just
Yeah.
oh, there isn't even an alert box on the screen. Broxy, thank you for the sub. Sorry, there's no alert box.
Proxy.
Thank you for the shout out. Yeah, I love the development he goes on, and there's the bit where he realizes he might stop, and I'm just like, I just want to give him a hug, like, let me hug you, sort of thing. And I think that's really
I mean,
he's amazing.
Yeah. He's
The
trope of Wooby. If you guys don't know what that is, it's the name for any type of character who makes you feel extremely sorry for them because they're cute and you don't want anything bad to happen to them ever. He's the definition of Wooby.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Also, I really like his moment with Zidane in Maiden Zari.
Ah, yes, that moment. Oh, that moment always... It doesn't hit differently, but it always makes me laugh when I think about it, because in my playthrough, I named Vivi after Ainsley, a woman. So the talk they have is always really funny to me, because it's like...
Hi, Proxy!
They're talking, they're having a man talk with a... I don't know, it just makes me laugh a lot when I think about that. But yeah, Vivi's a really lovely character. I also love the fact that he's the Black Mage, because Black Mages, I think, are my favourite type of mage.
He's
And
a
I
lot
think
stronger
anybody who
than
doesn't
you think.
even like 9, they're like, oh yeah, but Vivi's great. Like, he's known within the Final Fantasy series whether or not you've even like seen the game 9.
And Ace will know, when I've been playing through 5, and there's the Black Mage, putting someone as a Black Mage in that, I have called them Vivi so many fucking times.
Yeah.
Like, I've been like, oh, look, oh, I was like, Vivi, and I'm like, no, it's not Vivi.
Yeah, there's certain characters in 5 that you put them in a Black Mage role, and they look almost identical to BB.
Yeah. So that's why I sort of, made that mistake. I suppose, because we're trying to be a balance here, anything anyone dislikes about Vivi?
It's kind of hard to find anything that you would dislike about him.
Also, Mersh, there's a lot of background noise
Yeah.
coming through your mic.
Yeah, I've noticed that. As
I'm sorry, I don't know what it is. There's literally nothing happening here.
You're not like driving down the highway or anything.
No, I'm sitting in my room. There's no fan. There's no cat. There's nothing. I'm just existing.
Alright then, I guess move on to my third
It's
point.
basically,
and
Final
that's-
Fantasy 9's like third protagonist.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, honestly, as much as I like the story with Zidane and Garnet, I sort of remember Vivi more than those two, if I'm completely honest. Anyway.
I mean, you kind of see the world through his eyes because you're learning about the world as he is.
Yeah, he's sort of, you're looking into the world, I guess. So yeah, that's it. It's a good comparison, actually. Alright, my final point is the active time events. Was it active time events?
Eat.
JTD.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I should have added that to my positives. That was really nice. I wish they continued to do that in the other games.
Yeah, I love getting to
Yeah.
know more about the world, but I also like the fact that they're optional on the whole. Like, you don't have
Yeah,
to do everything.
That's actually something they took from Tales, the Tales of series of games, because they had it
Oh, with the
all the way back
skits?
in. Yes.
Did
Yeah.
Mersh not know something about Final Fantasy IX, especially related to the Tale series? I'm sorry, what?
No, I did.
I was gonna say, like, how did she not know this?
I mean, it was nice because they were optional, but it gave you just a little bit of extra story bits.
Yeah.
Always up for that.
And it wasn't always good because there's the one where you get robbed.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
It's
that one.
optional.
Honestly, I haven't actually properly looked through 9 since I did my playthrough. I really need to pick it up again, even if it's just an offline playthrough, because I miss it.
Me too.
And I was like,
Been debating another randomizer run.
I know, it's funny because when you were saying yesterday you were thinking about might doing a randomizer run, but you're like on the edge. I was like, I have a feeling tomorrow might tipper to actually wanting to do it. Anyway, anyone else got anything to say about the OTs?
A lot of them you can just like skip and you won't get anything like too like valuable out of. But other than that, they're a nice addition.
Their world building, which I think is,
Yeah.
really good. All right, time for Michelle to take the floor.
Okay. I'm gonna
Michelle,
put watermelon in my mouth. So,
your first positive point was character integration / growth, which is yellow
Yes.
because Raincourt also said character development, but Raincourt's not here.
Okay.
So, take it away.
yeah. So, yeah, character development is definitely a thing, but it's you kind of, I guess the way that they interact is so natural, and it's not forced. It's not, oh, I've fallen in love with you right away. I mean, Zidane claims he does, but he sees her as a hot piece of ass at first, and then he develops feelings, and she sees him as this obnoxious thing, but then they develop feelings. And even with like the smaller characters, not the main characters, like Steiner has incredible growth from being like the rules follower, gung-ho, not even paying attention to his own thoughts, to completely putting aside his own biases, learning about others, being open, and just that, and his interaction through his growth with Zidane and trusting him and the other characters, and just the Vivi friendship. Gets my heart.
I think,
I want to say Steiner had the greatest character growth in that game. Like
yeah,
Yeah, by
he
far.
grew so much.
slight,
Yeah.
for me, slight spoiler for 10 here, but Steiner is the better Waka, I think, for me. As much as, well, I don't like, you guys know I don't like Waka, but I think Steiner's just done so much better with that development, to be honest.
I
But
think they paid more attention to it.
yeah.
Mm.
But also, like, I think, like I said, I think it's just done better. And I always loved Steiner's character. Even if he was a bit, like, he didn't annoy me with the way how he was at the beginning as much as Waka does. Which I think made me want to like him more, which, yeah, I did really
Yeah.
like him.
Yeah, the character interaction and growth is all well and good, but I was actually kind of curious of where they was going to take the actual beta version of the game, because in the beta version, in the Fall of Alexandria, Steiner was meant to die, and he was meant to have Beatrix in your party after that point.
Mm.
And I would have
That would have been
loved to see where
interesting.
that went.
And I mean, even before that, they were supposed to be the same character. It was supposed to be just one character, but they split them into two.
Yeah,
Well, that,
I feel like it's
Steiner
better
was meant
this
to be
one.
just like pure like knight warrior kind of thing, whereas Beatrix was more like the white mage swordsman, well, swordswoman.
Paladin.
Yeah,
I'm glad they didn't kill off Steiner because I really like the whole love letter scene with
Mm.
Keiko,
oh, that's so good.
Steiner,
yeah,
and that whole thing got a little mix up. And I liked seeing Steiner and Beatrix together at the end.
It, also, knowing that they were originally going to be the same character kind of makes it even more sort of not believable, but it works even better for me now knowing that they did fall in love at the end, because knowing they were going to be the same character.
And they have the same views and everything, yeah.
Yeah. Also, I love one of the things, going back to Beatrix, one of the things I love, and it's honestly one of the things I really do love about any sort of media, is I love a strong woman, there is a lot of strong women in this game.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something I think is done really well. Especially, I think, obviously, I personally am the youngest here. I've not lived through the 90s, but I think even then, I think tides still weren't quite where they are today. So to have such positive representations of women in a game is kind of a big thing.
Yeah, completely agree.
But yeah, anyone got anything else to add, or should we move on to Michelle's next point?
I could add in loads more, but it would take on a lot longer of the stream.
Yeah, that's true.
Alright, next point is... click into it. There we go. Emotion evoking.
So this is where I talk about music. No, I'm kidding. I mean, that is a big part of it. But I think it really is good at hitting your empathy and your sympathy in the moments between the characters, in the moments that are supposed to be sad. It has this beautiful blend of seeing the character get distraught, having the emotions from the music happen at the same time, like with the black mages falling off the goddamn airship.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Feels strange because you see the sad drop, you see him, you know a little bit of the background by that point, just enough that you can feel for these things, and the music just swells at the right point. And throughout the entire game, there's so many moments like that. And it makes it so memorable.
Yeah.
So yeah, the airship, the was it in Black Mage Village when Zidane was telling Garnet that story?
Yeah, his story about his childhood.
Yeah. That was.
They humanized the characters really well.
Also, going back to music again, but it sort of ties in. The song that Garnet sings, that I don't know what it is, but that always makes me emotional.
It's Melodies of Life.
Oh, that is Melodies of Life. Okay, but yeah, that always makes me emotional. I don't think I ever cried while playing the game, but honestly, it takes a lot for me to cry. But that's not to say that the game didn't invoke emotion in me, but
And that was actually the first voice acting in Final Fantasy.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What about the 8 song?
No, because that was a recorded song. It wasn't.
Oh, right. Okay, I see.
It was literally voice acted by I can't remember who voiced acted it now. I used to know it off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, there's a lot of moments, and there was one that what was it? There was one you guys didn't mention. On the bit at the end, the final bit, when you realise that it's Vivi's children. Like, I didn't realise that at first. Someone had to point that out to me, and I was like, oh. It just hits you like a ton of bricks.
Oh, when she fucking smacks him on the chest, I'm like, oh my god, that rod.
Yeah.
Yep.
I will say I did feel a little sorry for Kuja at the end, just because
you're
I cared for.
supposed
Yeah, I mean, I cared for Zidane so much that I felt sorry for him that he's essentially losing like a brother, and it's you know it's
That,
tough.
and they give you good reason as to why you would want to feel bad for him, why he's doing what he's doing, because he literally didn't learn how to grow up and get his own emotions as a child, because he didn't have that.
Yeah.
So
and you
you have
realize
that sympathy of what he's missed.
and you realize Zidane could have gone down that same path too if he hadn't kicked out of Terra by him.
I'd just like to add, this is a little bit of like a fan theory on my part. I don't think Kuja actually died. I think Zidane saved him and is now hiding out in the Black Mage village with the other genomes.
I like that headcanon. I'll accept it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Alright. Anyone else got anything to add on this topic?
No, one of my points kind of goes into this in some fashion. So
Okay. Right. The final point from Michelle, positive-wise, was the ability learn system.
I know
I would
this
agree
is a
with that.
controversial one.
that's
I know a lot of people don't like it.
One of my points actually kind of goes into it.
The getting it makes you want to go and try and get everything in the shops just to see what you can get. It makes you really plan out what you're equipping instead of just equipping the best thing automatically. And it does keep it between each of their jobs, which is the classic Final Fantasy way to go. But it just, I don't know, it was so nice to be like, well, I could choose to learn this, or I could move on and learn something else. Like, you have that choice. It's not just you level up and you get an ability.
Also,
I really liked that.
hey, Lit. You're adorable, Foxen.
Hi, Lit.
Lit.
Thanks, Dave.
Lit, you're cute.
I would have to agree. I like games that give you a reason to grind a little bit. Like with Final Fantasy 12, you have the loot system. That's a good way to make money. In Final Fantasy 9, it was learning abilities, and it was fun finding new pieces of equipment, trying to figure out what abilities you could learn from it, and then kind of grinding out a little bit until you learn that ability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to say too much on this point because I might have brought this up somewhere else. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, it's also kind of linked with one of my points. So I'm not going to say too much more because
Okay.
it's a very simple system, but yeah, it's
simple, but you also have to trade off the stat bonuses of the equipment. It's just like, if I want to learn this, I can't protect myself on that.
It's subtly complex.
Yep.
Alright, so should we move on to Gua's points then?
Sure tang.
Alright, Gua, your first positive was the art style / music.
I feel like I had to, pair those together. But we already talked about the music, so I'll talk about more of the art style of it. I mean, for me, I want to say, like, my first RPG was Legend Dragoon. My first Final Fantasy game right after playing that was Final Fantasy 9. And I will say I kind of like it more than the realistic styles of Final Fantasy 8 and 7 that I played after. It was just like a cute little it really kind of brought out the fantasy a lot more with the art style.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I loved it.
I think I have heard though some people are put off by the art style of the game.
Oh, a lot of people don't like it.
I
Which I can get, but it doesn't bother me at all.
I agree with Goa.
For me, it's
great.
that while it may chipify them or whatever they call it, it really gives the animators a chance to fully emote what these characters are feeling in their faces, in their actions, in their movements. When you're working on realism, and I was thinking about this last week because I was watching some like PS5 game, and I'm like, yeah, you can see all the pores in his face, but you have to like work that much harder to get emotion that's believable. With these kind of simpler faces, you can get that emotion out of them real easy.
I think it's funny you should mention looking at other stuff, because I was watching a comparison video on the animation of the beginning of FF7 original versus the FF7 remake, and they were talking a bit about how in that like animation was in its very early stages. Then you look at FF8, or it's sort of much better, still not brilliant because it's still quite early on, but I think with the way animation was at the time, going this route rather than going for more humanoid like 8 was. I mean, I haven't looked. You guys know I haven't played 8, and I've only seen bits of Mercy's playthrough, so I don't know too much about how it looks. But I think for the time, I think this animation and this style works quite well.
Yeah, and it's actually held up quite well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd say the same.
And it was easy for them to HD it.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have as much they had to do with it, They weren't changing it completely from blocky people to IRL people. It was, I mean, sure, it was pixelated, but it was also like PlayStation 1. You gotta remember that.
Yeah,
But it holds up.
Heard like rumors that there could be like a Final Fantasy VII like remake on the cards for 9.
They're doing an animation.
I have heard the animation is on the way, but I've also heard of like an actual like remake of the game.
I mean, they've been
Like,
talking
similar to
about
7.
that for a long time. The Sakaguchi said this is the one game that he would want to do a remake of.
I like a remake of 9, but I think like a lot of people would be concerned about, like people were with 7, the taking of the original and changing it. But I must say, from what I've seen of 7 remakes so far, I do like the look of it. So if it was to get the same sort of treatment, not be to sort of have, because 7 remakes. Sorry, go on.
So I was gonna say, like, I like the Final Fantasy VII remake. So if they ever did, but there is a issue where they kind of changed the story around a little bit. So if they ever did a remake with 9, I would. That's the one game I would really hope that they didn't change the story of.
I think they could only add a little bit more to it, in my opinion. Because with 7, there was a lot they had to like cut out because they were rushed.
Yeah.
But with 9, they didn't have that problem.
Yeah, and
I don't
7
think
has
they
already kind of that grim dark feel to it, the cyber darkness. So that was really easy to translate into modern gameplay because that's kind of what modern games have been lately. With 9, it's if they made it this dark thing, it's supposed to be all these bright and colorful world with all these, distinct characters, and then there's all this really depressing shit hidden underneath that slaps you in the face.
Yeah.
That if they made it grim dark from the get-go, it just wouldn't work. They'd have to go with like how the Dragon Quests have done it. Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's one of the reasons why I like the art style. And a lot of people who maybe are not well experienced with Final Fantasy IX kind of assume it's a different type of game based on the art style. It's like, no, it's actually a pretty dark game, but like the art style kind of hides it well enough to where it doesn't depress you right out the bat. Because there's a lot that goes on, that is,
so dark.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
So if you're gonna say something.
I was going to say another game that I think it's not Final Fantasy related at all, but it's a game that was made by one person. That's also an RPG. That is like looks very bright and cheerful, yet is super dark. I think is a game called Jimmy and the Pulsating Mast. Really fun RPG.
Never heard of that.
Never heard of it, yeah.
It's on Steam.
I sense people's Googles being open. I should point out here, because obviously Tele was supposed to be joining us, and Tele is the negative side of this like balancing, and she really doesn't like the art style. She gave me some points before when we realised she wasn't going to be able to make it. She said, I don't like the art style, it's way too cartoonish, and I literally have difficulty looking at it. That's her opinion, not mine, just putting it out there.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I mean, that is a common opinion with the game, and that's why a lot of people don't give it a try, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. Don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a game by its look. But, yeah.
Except I will judge Grimdark games.
Anyone got any more points they want to bring up on this one?
I think we've pretty much covered everything.
I think we have. Right then, Guar, your second point was the story.
I feel like we've touched on a lot of this already. The various character arcs and how there's a lot of good themes that were brought up. Trying to understand life and death and try to deal with that. Steiner's whole character arc. Zidane kind of learning about his original purpose, then kind of overcoming that and realizing, even though he's been there for everyone else, he needs to realize that everyone's also there for him. As we were mentioning before, it is a very dark game. I like the pacing of it a lot. Like, you go from the excitement of trying to kidnap the princess, then you crash into Evil Forest, then you go through Ice Cavern, and you have like that little bit of rest in Dalai, which I freaking love because it just gives you a little bit of a break in the story to kind of reset you a little bit, and then you end up on this crazy chase to Lindblom, and then it's just this once again you have a little bit of a break there with the Festival of the Hunt, which is a lot of fun, and it's just it's just a nice mix of like darkness, but then also some like fun kind of relaxing moments to kind of not overwhelm you with everything.
Yeah, they use levity in a way that keeps you having fun instead of just being sad.
Yeah, I agree.
And another thing I love about the game is how the save points are actually like they work well within the world. It's just a Moogle that comes up with a book. Like, it's not like it's not like Final Fantasy VII where it's an actual just kind of like glowing object that you just walk up to. Like, I kind of like how it's
it fits
an
in the
actual-
world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, whoop whoop whoop. I still love
Except
that
for Moogle
moment.
and Terra. I don't know how she got there.
I still
Yeah, I know.
love. I still love.
Pandemonium, why are you there?
I still love that moment from the race where there was a Moogle. There was a bit donation and made sure it was the Moogle in the game. That's still one of my favourite moments of the race.
That was awesome.
And so, yeah, as you can tell, I like Moogles because it's my follower sound, for those of you that don't know.
I also love how they added the fact that if you call the Moogle one too many times, he threatens you with his knife.
I don't think I ever got that.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, I do it every time
It's
just for
not-
funsies.
you can go even further than that, and it will literally start having a literal breakdown.
Yeah.
I'll have to YouTube this because I don't think I've ever seen
He
that in
stops.
my
I think he
playthrough.
stops coming if you do it long enough.
If I remember, like, Mage did some of it on one of his latest
Mhm.
videos.
Possibly.
I'm sharpening my knife. Hey, Relentless, and hey, Kalu, by the way, as well. Welcome on in,
Hello.
both of you.
Hey, Relentless.
But yeah, I do agree with God that the story is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the characters' backstories are good. Like, learning about Vivi and his grandpa that he like fondly remembers was actually trying to eat him.
Yeah.
Then learning about Zidane's childhood growing up, and then eventually learning that Garnet came from the village of summoners, and that that whole beginning scene kind of tends to make sense with her in the ship with her mother. It just I don't know, it's just nice to kind of learn about most of the characters. I won't say any more than that, but
Yeah.
Yeah, because that goes into one of my topics later.
yeah, same.
Yeah. It's kind of into one of mine as well.
The last point I will bring up, and I've told this to Michelle, and I said this during the race, that I love about the story is it's rounded. in a weird way that the story sort of starts off. You've got Garnet on the balcony watching the play, and she runs down and she ends up on the stage. At the end, Garnet's there watching the play. She sees Zidane and she runs down. Like that weird sort of loop. I love. Like I'm trying to think if that relates to anything necessarily within the game, or any themes within
It's
the game.
It's a lot of setup and payoff.
Yeah. Like, I feel like there's something that relates to. I just can't think of exactly what right now, but I do love how that happens, that she ends up going down there. Both times voluntary as well. Obviously the second time she practically runs. But yeah. I think that's all the points we have for story.
Yeah.
Did Tele say something? I think Tele said something about the story. Yeah, she did. She said, let me read it. So, again, as a reminder, Tele is not the liking of this game. I spent like time on them. The plot, Tele says, the plot, I mean, really what the actual fuck is this nonsense? Starts off incredibly cliched in almost a princess in a tower way, but then shocker, she escapes and goes on an adventure and finds herself and about her secret heritage. Finds out about herself and her secret heritage. Comes back home to rule as queen, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Then it becomes even more cliche because Big Bad wants to restore his race. He does some fuckery to replace souls with those of his people, and the planets are going to merge at Cetra? Then they go to some crystal world, crystals in Final Fantasy. What? Big bad final boss fight, and then the good triumph. Time skip, everything's okay, I mean, except for Vivi being dead and somehow the Queen's love interest. I think they have a romantic subplot, so hard to keep track with this mess. Reveals himself as being alive, I mean, the actual plotline just feels like it's a series of events that are only loosely connected, and then about halfway through it changes and nothing from the first half really matters anymore. I've tried multiple times to that's the relate and relayed. But yeah, that's Tele's points on the story, which was partly why I wanted to hear, because her points are really different. I think it adds a nice bit of balance.
Yeah.
But
And there are some things that I agree with, but at the same time, I don't know if this is part of her thinking or not, but the game is supposed to pay homage and follow the older fantasy and plot and cliches like that, because that's what got Final Fantasy going.
yeah,
So a lot of that is purposeful.
And I will add, that's kind of what I liked about Final Fantasy IX is,
Yep.
because that was the first one I played. So when I went back and played other games, I realized how many things they were referenced. Like when you meet Ramu and you have to piece together that story, that takes place in Final Fantasy II. Like it's nice to see all those references after the fact. Once you play through the rest of the series.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's a love letter to the old stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah. Having played 7, I can definitely see the.
I mean,
The ties,
in
wouldn't I?
the weapon shop of Limblom, if you check some of the weapons having up on the wall, it's like, I remember a spiky blonde-haired guy wielding a
Yeah.
sword like this.
Yeah.
All the little eggs, Easter eggs.
I also love the bit where I think it's in Limblom, where someone asks you like, "Are you enjoying this game?" And if you say no, she gets all snarky with you.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, we'll stop playing or something. Yeah, there. I mean, when I was a kid, because I was 10 when I started playing this, I loved the beginning and I loved the fantasy and everything. And I don't know if it was just because I was clinging to that so hard, but when it started to go into like multiple worlds and crazy shit, I was like, what's happening? Because I didn't really. I mean, Final Fantasy VII kind of stuck with its weirdness the whole way through, but the other ones tend to like throw it halfway in, and I wasn't prepared.
Yeah.
But now that I've grown up and I can play the game knowing life, I do like that. But at the beginning, I was like, I don't know why they're doing this. Like, can't it just be fantasy? So.
I agree with that. When I first played it, it was a little weird, but after multiple playthroughs and kind of growing up with it a little bit more,
I mean, when I
better
first,
understanding of what's going on.
when I first played it, you remember I ended up having to get Michelle on the call because I was like, I'm not enjoying this. But I find it weird now that I wasn't enjoying it as much because I love it now. Like gotten through the game, like I really love it. I don't know what it is though, like, but you know, you have those moments where it's like I'm really not enjoying this. But I found now if I sort of try and stick through it, like I did with 10, I took a bit of a break, but I came back and now I really like it. And weirdly enough, World of Final Fantasy is increasing my love for 10, which is something I didn't think would happen, but
Yeah, I mean, adding on to Michelle's point earlier, multiple worlds in Final Fantasies wasn't this game wasn't the first. I won't say which one was because Martini hasn't played it yet, but
I know at
he's
least
getting to it.
I know at least one before.
Oh yeah, it's not the first. It was just the first I had experienced.
Yeah.
Okay, should we move on to Gua's final positive point?
Yeah,
let's do it.
Tis exploration / mini games.
So, one of my favorite mini games has to be Chocobo Hot and Cold.
Fuck
I
yeah.
think-
Yes.
I think I like like on you know I can't talk right now. On subsequent playthroughs, I would kind of take a long break from the story and just play Chocobo Hot and Cold.
Nothing wrong
I
with that.
literally have a save on every system that is right before Chocobo Hot and Cold, just so I can play.
That's a good idea. I never thought of doing that. But
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun. I liked going out into the world and finding those, I want you get a chocograph and then using that to find chests, and then also with the dead pepper locations and the cave cracks or the mountain cracks or whatever you want to call them, and also kind of doing the whole the Moogle side quests with finding out why their mail is down, and learning that the one Moogle is using the oil to put on his
Yeah, Artemisian.
Oh.
What a little
Yeah.
dick.
But I will add frog catching was still fun. It's very basic, but it was still
Oh,
fun.
I love it.
Then the card game, well, yes, not as straightforward as Final Fantasy VIII. One thing I hate about Final Fantasy VIII was how the rules can change without you being if you weren't careful enough, and it could really like mess up the card game as a whole. Whereas this, it's like the rules stay the same, so you knew what you knew what you were getting. Once you learned it, you knew what you were getting into, and it was still fun. Just
It's like this one is anyway. It's still fun, but the points don't matter.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I actually really like the 9-card game. Like, it took me a bit to get my head around it, but by the time I got to the tournament, I actually kind of, that sort of taught me properly how to play it. And actually,
Oh yeah, I love the crap out of it. I still don't
Yeah.
understand it, but I love it.
I actually understand it fully.
oh,
So a lot of these stats are random. You can have a good stat thing, but it has its own like range that it can contain. So you can have like a really hard with good arrows or anything, but it can end up being slightly weaker than someone else's like the same card have very similar stats, but just enough to beat your great card. Which does suck, but as long as you know roughly what you have, it's perfectly fine. You can work around it.
is Ave cutting out for anyone else?
Yeah, it's cutting out.
Yeah,
Ah.
no.
So
Ave?
Hello.
Ave? Speak to us, Ave.
We lost him.
Oh,
Man down.
We're already
no,
2
Ave.
people down. But another mini game that we didn't touch upon, but it's actually in the background of the stream, is the acting dueling game, I guess.
oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Viva a la Flamenco.
If that's what it's called, that's what it's
Oh,
called.
it's
I don't
Vavo
know.
a la Flamenco. That's the song that's playing in the background. It's the same
Oh,
song that plays during the Chocobo Hot and Cold.
Oh, I love it. That's another thing.
I know now.
I love. Yeah, you're better now.
We can
Oh
hear
yeah,
you now.
him.
I love the Chocobo music in all the Final Fantasy games, but this one included. Just another point to part there. But yeah, Abe, you want to say what you were saying?
Yeah, I was going to say I understand fully what the hard game it is. That's they're kind of random. but they have their own ranges depending on what is on the card. But because of that, you can have identical cards to someone else, but because they're randomized, you can end up losing. It's kind of sucks, but it's still a very good card game.
You're still a bit choppy, by the way.
A little
I
bit.
mean, we got the gist of what you were saying.
Yeah, we got the gist of what
Yeah,
you were saying, but
sorry.
you're still just
Yeah.
so you know.
In that played up.
Also, I know Relentless was joking with this, but I kind of did like the auction house. That was a little fun.
Oh,
kinda-
yeah.
Hitting.
Oh, I love
Against
the
other
auction
people.
house. I thought it was
Yeah.
super fun.
Yours is actually really good.
But yeah. Anyone else
I
got?
believe it's the only one I see with an auction house.
Say that again?
Say again,
I
yeah.
believe it's the only Final Fantasy with an auction house.
Oh, is it? Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay, anyone got anything else to add on this category, or should we move on?
You can move on.
Listen to-
Well, funny enough, it's Raincourse points next, and he's in the chat, so maybe he'll be able to help explain them a little bit. So, seeing as Raincourse's not here, but he's in the chat, I'm going to read all three of his at once. He had hidden features because the other two got brought up by other people. So, Raincore, what hidden features, what do you like about hidden features? And for my benefit, maybe, tell me a bit about what these hidden features you mean, because I'm not sure what he means. But yeah, I something I was going to mention before when you were talking about Checkerboard Hot and Cold. Someone introduced me to it. I can't remember who, and I loved it. And the one thing I didn't do, which I kind of want to do on my Redux playthrough, is I want to try and get some Checkergraphs and actually find the stuff because I never actually got around to doing it. Oh, hello.
We have a raincoat.
I'm doing well. Can you hear me okay?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I can
Okay,
hear.
perfect. All right. So, yeah, I can talk about that real quick. So, like, two of the hidden features that I really liked about the game were, so obviously when Queen Bran dies, you gotta think, like, you know, at that point, Dagger is so distraught over the death of her mother that they incorporate that into her being so heartbroken that she literally can't do anything in certain points. Obviously, it's an annoying mechanic, right? But
Especially in the
like,
race for Michelle.
yeah, and-
Yeah.
but it's there, and it's like those little attentions to detail. And the other one, a lot of people don't actually know about it because of the sole fact of when you're doing Mognet, you're trying to do it the whole time. But in the area where Bargain Rue maybe, where you fight Lon for the first time, what happens there is your characters are automatically drugged back there with Quina because they're chasing a frog. And there's a Mognet point right there before you enter that area. And if you miss that Mognet point and you go back to finish the side quest, the only way you can get to that area is if you have Quina in your party, because only the Qs know the secrets of Q's Marsh. So it's like that's like those little features of having to have certain characters in your party for certain things to happen.
Right.
Ah.
Really, I like that attention to detail.
Yeah. They play off of your characters and who's in your party. Like, you know, not being allowed to use magic in certain
Right.
areas.
Or not in others when... I'm not even going to carry on.
Or
I
like
still can't believe it.
in Castle, you know, the upside down backwards world where, you know, you read things and it has these hint indications that, you know, everything here is backwards, so it's like everything's reverted to origin, and you have to have like your standard weapons to do the most damage.
Yeah, and even just like with the Easter eggs too, but especially where you find out Barnett's true name, like you take the time to go and follow these clues, and it will give you really cool information that you wouldn't get otherwise. But they took the time to put all of that in there.
Right.
Yeah, another little Easter egg, which was only fairly recently discovered, was when you enter the Memoria like, area as a whole, you can actually do a little like signing with the Benero, Zenero, and Genero brothers.
Oh
And
yeah, the mini
obviously,
game that was hidden.
yes, but you have to go back to them where the
Oh, is this
whole
the
hideout is.
Tantalus one? Oh yeah, I
Yes.
know what you're talking about. Yeah. You have to find, yeah, you have to find all the brothers, and I don't even, I've watched a video on that, and I still don't really fully understand
Yeah.
how someone found that. Like,
It's literally just like, oh, done this. Maybe I should go back to what happens. A whole mindset.
Oh,
we're losing them again.
hey,
God damn it. Am I back yet?
there's Abe's points coming up
Kinda.
next as well.
Another hidden feature. I don't know if you guys talked about it, but I don't know if you guys know about the Ruby feature at the very beginning of the game. So obviously, like if you say you're gonna
Oh,
kidnap
yeah.
Queen Bran like 8 times, like Baku's like, all right, guys, quit fooling around. But actually, if you say it, I believe it's 65 times, Ruby will come into the room and she'll tell you you're a persistent
Yeah.
one.
It's either 65 or like 86. Something
Yeah,
like
it's something.
I
It's
can't
some
remember.
weird
Weird
amount.
number.
It's a very specific number. But yeah, any other hidden features or anything people want to talk about with this one?
No, I can't think of anything.
I can't think of anything else.
Right. I guess we'll move on to Abe's points. Now, Abe's first positive point was, again, the outstanding music, which apparently I didn't. We already talked about, kind of. Wait, is this? Did I do Abe's?
Yeah.
No, this is Guaz. These are Guaz points. Did I not update this slide with Abe's points? I don't know. Hey, what were your points? Where's your message? No, I didn't do yours.
I was gonna say, these are oddly similar to mine.
You said, okay, so Abe's first point, which we kind of touched on, was that music is really good and it fits each area.
Mm-hmm.
His second point, which we kind of didn't touch on, so I think we could go into a bit of a discussion on this one, is that gameplay is simple to understand yet complex at the same time once you delve into it.
Yeah, it kind of links into reserve one where you learn abilities with your items, and it seems like really simple, but then you go to like learn everything, and you find out that you have to wear weaker items sometimes to get the most out of the game, and it's really something that I really like that Final Fantasy 9 has done. Not many games like force you to wear like weaker bits of equipment to get the most out of the game.
Yeah, I like that.
I think it puts more importance on equipment. I know with Dragon Quest, which I love that series, but like when you get to a new city, you can decide, should I spend my money now on new equipment, or should I wait until the next city and buy better equipment there? Whereas in this game, it's like you gotta pick up every piece of equipment you get because you never know what you're gonna learn from it. And I kind of like that because it makes the equipment more important, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Agreed.
So I'm just adding in Abe's points. So I'm listening. I'm just, making sure I'm putting these in the right order. Right. So now I've updated that. So boop boop. There we go. Gameplay is simple yet complex. Yeah, I think for a first time playing a Final Fantasy game, I think I got the majority of it, but with a little bit of help from Michelle, I definitely it wasn't like it was. She had to do too much to sort of point me in the right direction, which I think is a good sign for the game. anyone else got anything to say about this one? Or shall we move back on? Or move on to F's
Move
final
on.
point? Okay, F's final point is the FMVs are really good and impactful, and that's not on the box. But yeah,
Yeah. The FMV adds so much. They impact so much emotion and so much feeling into the game that you can't really say anything bad about them. So, I really love the FMVs in Final Fantasy 9.
I mean, that's why they had to make it in Hawaii, because they
Mm.
wanted to put that amount of effort and love into the FMVs. So they were working with Hollywood to get those to really pop,
Yeah, like
which is something that 8 misses.
yeah, the airship chase is still one of my favorite scenes early on.
Mm-hmm.
I miss.
Obviously, as bad as it is, it's still like it's a huge scene. The one where Clara gets destroyed.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, it was breathtaking.
Yeah.
Tactical Odin nuke incoming.
Yeah, I still remember. Well, I was gonna say that first scene you were talking about, the airship one. I remember I didn't really see that one because my stream crashed at that point, so I was too busy trying to fix it, trying to actually get it to work. But yeah.
Yeah, another one of the FMVs that is really impactful is Atomos absorbing Lindblom.
Oh
I
yeah,
was just thinking about that, yeah.
Yeah.
that's when you're like, oh shit, stuff is happening. This is serious business type thing.
I think the first time I played, I literally had the same expression as Garnet. Like, hands over mouth, like, holy fuck.
Yeah, I love, and I don't think it's part of the FMV, I think it's an in-game cutscene, but the bit afterwards where she's sort of being consoled by Zidane, I think that's a really sort of emotional moment.
Yeah, and you can see the anger on Zidane's face as well.
Yeah. Because,
It did so well to portray it.
yeah.
The expressions, because they were more cartoony. Yeah.
Well, she gets a point to hammer it. She gets an opportunity to hammer her point, so she's going to do it.
Yes, sirree.
I mean, for those who don't know, Michelle loves this game. This is her favourite game of all time. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah. I really love a lot of the FMVs. I'm trying to think of some of the ones towards the end.
I mean, the last one where she's throwing her tiara and running through the crowd. It's just
that's classic. Yeah, I also love that whole, like, going back to the ending, the whole thing about the fact that it's Vivi talking. I was like, oh, and when I look back at it, I'm like, oh yeah, I can kind of see that. But, yeah. Alright, seeing as, we're sort of, yeah. Which FMV will you guys say, off the top of your head, is the most impactful?
Oh, for me it's between two: the airship scene, chase scene, and the Atmos Lindblom absorption. If I had to pick between those two, I'd say slightly more towards the Atmos absorbing Lindblom.
Okay, Michelle, I think was BRB.
Yeah, I mean, not FMVs, then it would be Zidane and Garnet in the boat. But FMV, God, I probably, as much as all of them impacted me while I was playing it emotionally, probably Garnet standing up, cutting her hair is probably the most impactful in general, because she was kind of the person that I looked up to, wanted to be. So the fact that she was able to, like, take this hardship, cut it away from herself, and move forward, that has definitely been in the back of my mind throughout my life as I've grown up. So that one's mine.
Yeah, I think for me, and this might seem like a bit of an unusual one, but one of the ones that I remember the most is the scene in, what is it? Where is it? The town, place where the auction is.
I know.
Trina, that's it. the scene there where they're going to steal the See, this is how well I know this story. The place where they're going to steal something, and you've got Steiner, and they're all in the boat, and then you've got like them having them thinking, and that's just sort of the quietness, I think, of that scene.
So are we talking non-FMV?
Well, mine is.
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, is it not an
I was gonna say I have other scenes.
Is that not an FMV?
No, it's not.
Well, if it's not, then I'd say the Liminal Destruction one. But that scene, still, I think is really impactful in my opinion.
Especially for Steiner's whole character growth.
Yeah. And is Squad back?
I'm just got back.
We're just asking everyone the FMV they think is the most impactful.
And I did mention a couple.
Yeah, and then Miney went and decided he was going to go against his own question. And
Alright.
something
I
for
forgot
FMV.
that wasn't an FMV. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So, time to move on to some negative points. Now, I can't remember where this one comes. I think it might be the first one. I don't know. For me, I put the ability system, and the reason is because I never understood it. I understand why other people like it, but for me personally, I never got it, and I therefore I think as a result kind of struggled a bit with it, so therefore I kind of disliked it a bit. I think if I took some time to get to know it, I might, have a more positive opinion on it. But for me, because I didn't understand it, but unlike the spear grid system, I kind of grew to understand it. It kind of ends up on the negative list for me. But like I say, I think that would change if I took some time to actually, properly look into it. I just didn't really do that at the time.
Alright, I know some people who, even when they understand it, they don't like that ability system, which is fine.
But yeah, we kind of already touched on the ability system, but those are my reasons why I didn't like it as much. And I know, Abe, you were saying you had some stuff you wanted to say on the ability system.
Yeah, the ability system I really like, honestly. It's simple, yet it's really effective, yet also really in-depth when you really get into it. Because you can set up for near enough any kind of battle just with the abilities that you get off your equipment.
It's very
really, really good.
customizable.
Yeah,
Seems like I'm a lonely duckling then in this department.
possibly.
Yeah.
I just
In
think
this group, yes, but I know others that agree with you.
I just think that I need to take some time to understand it, because that's the thing, I just didn't understand it. And that's the biggest reason why. And sort of, like,
I mean, that was me with 8. That's why I didn't play it for like 20 years. Because I couldn't get the junction system.
Yeah,
Now
the
that I
junction
got it, I'm
system
enjoying
is
it.
not easy, yeah.
The junction system is a whole different nest of problems, but yeah.
yeah, but I think, like I say, if I took some time to learn it a bit, I might, be better at it and like it more. Well, I hope I'd be better at it if I learned it, but you know what I mean. I think I'd like it more.
Definitely learning a system's helpful. I mean, Final Fantasy has so many different ability systems, so many different ways to level up. Like Final Fantasy 2, I didn't really initially like that when I first played it.
Yeah,
But
it's
once I
very
kind of
different.
understood it more, it was actually a lot of fun. Like, I mean, yeah, I kind of cheesed it a little bit by smacking my teammates around, but
That's something everybody did.
But yeah, I think we'll move on because you guys have already talked in depth about the ability system. My second negative point is that fucking weight puzzle. I hate it. For one reason only. How the feck am I meant to know what weighs more than other materials? Like, I don't know that off the top of my head. So how am I meant to do that? Like, that whole puzzle was just basically brute forcing it until I got it right.
I'm pretty sure I did the same thing when I played it as a kid.
Like, I didn't know which one was meant to go where. So it was literally like, okay, so brute forcing it, because I don't know, certain things weigh more than
It's
others.
going to be like common sense.
Common sense!
Out of the 4, wood is typically lighter than the 3 of them.
Yeah.
Alright.
Playing iron.
Maybe I lack common sense then, I don't know.
I don't know, it was like when I was 10, so it's like when you're learning, like, oh, is a kilogram of feathers the same weight as a kilogram of steel?
Yes. Yeah, yes it is. But I think as well, the thing that kind of annoyed me was that the puzzle where you have to like the stealth puzzle bit before it. I think because I kept failing the weight puzzle, I kept having to do the stealth puzzle, and
Oh, yeah.
more
Red
and
light, green
more
light.
as I get impatient, I do it faster and I keep getting caught. You know, so it kind of
Yeah.
built up a bit of a rage cycle there, in a sense. So I think that might have
I think
contributed.
everybody went through that set of emotions.
So I think it might have
Yeah.
contributed a bit to that. But yeah, that's sort of my opinion on it. And my final point for negatives is question mark, because I didn't come up with a third one. Don't say. That's me thinking I was prepared. Right, final negative point I could think of. Okay, I know that someone else has brought this up later down the line, but I really didn't like the Necron fight. I just didn't think it really fit, and I think part of this for me might be due to the fact that I beat Necron so much later after I beat the main game, or the rest of the game, but it just felt very detached, if that makes sense. Like it's sort of
It's
does,
definitely a
yeah.
common complaint. Yeah.
felt like it came a bit out of nowhere. And I think as well, like I say, because I actually beat Necron like months after the fact. It was actually because someone jokingly said like, "Are you a true Final Fantasy fan if you haven't beaten it?" Then I was like, it gave me the motivation to go, I'm going to go do it. And then that day, which was during a race actually, I did it, and I was really proud of myself. Thankfully, it didn't take too long, because when I did the fight against Ark in Oliver, it took me 46 minutes because I didn't have no magic users. So that was an interesting experience, spending 46 minutes on a fight. But and that was like one of like 4 attempts, I think, which all got to about half an hour, if not longer. So yeah, never taking magic users to a non-magic zone again. But yeah, I think mainly I don't think it was. I think partly because of the circumstances in which I played it, but also partly I think it just felt a bit out of place. Like I maybe would have preferred it if Kucha would have been the final boss. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that.
anyway,
I'm
so
still have a mixed opinion on Necron. Like I understand what he's supposed to represent. But it is gonna come out of nowhere.
yeah, I almost kind of wish there'd been some sort of slight foreshadowing earlier
I wish
on.
they stuck to Hades.
Oh.
Because Hades
Yeah,
was supposed to be the
yeah.
final boss.
He hints at Ozma, but not Necron.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, anyway, let's move on to Michelle's negative points, which I imagine were horrible for her to write. But I love how I just treat Michelle as like the person who just loves Final Fantasy IX, like doesn't want to say a single thing wrong with it. Like the thought of saying
Hey,
something
I'll
wrong
admit
about
if
it.
something's not right. I mean, shit.
Well, she submitted 3 points to me. The first one is
Okay.
Amaranth and Freya's second act.
Yeah. So, one, just Amaranth. I hate him with all of my being. But especially, well, I guess that's kind of when he comes in as the second act. But I'll start with Freya. Freya's second act is almost non-existent. She has her arc of looking for her lost love, finding him, realizing he has amnesia, and then it's just like, oh, well, okay, I'm gonna go with you guys and help you save the world. And I'm like, that's great. But now she's just on the bench.
And she kind of
as a
just
badass. Like,
disappears
there's
into
no
the background a little
There's
bit.
literally no story with it.
That was actually one of my points. And yeah, Freya had a decent story, and then nothing, and then like an ending.
Yep.
And then Amaranth had like a little bit of backstory with Zidane, but then that was really it. Like,
Yeah, they did
Alright.
not establish that relationship very well at all. That was probably the most forced thing in the game. Like,
Yeah.
I talk about Renoa and Squall being a forced relationship. This was the forced relationship of 9.
Yeah.
Because you meet him and he's just like, yeah, I've had this grudge against you forever. And then they cut back to a scene that you never experienced. And it was like years before the game. And it's just like, okay, cool, great, you got arrested. Good for you. Like, okay.
why are you joining the party again? Like, it's because we spared you? Like,
Yeah, he spared you and you don't get it. Okay, cool, go home.
It's kind of linking into one of my points later on, but Yeah, there is, and Amon is one of my favorite characters, but
Really?
yeah, it's not. There's not real point for him to be in the party. It's like, as much as I like him as a character, it just doesn't like belong.
If anything, I'd probably say Lonnie instead of him should be in the party because they've mentioned
Yeah.
her earlier in the game.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
sure,
yeah.
they show Amaranth for like a hot second with Bran, but she was in the Hunters Festival. You can find like little things about her. She has her kind of character arc with Aiko.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Makes more sense.
I would completely agree with you.
Either that or Beatrix. Like,
Oh, well, that would definitely Beatrix, but I mean, like, out of
Like,
the
he-
least possible.
yeah. I mean, he comes
Well,
into the
that's
party
how it was
so
supposed to be.
late. It's like, what's the point? Like,
Yeah, like he comes in and they're like, "Do you want to change up your party?" And I'm like, "I'm about to go into this big fight. Like, what they're bigging up to be a
Literally
big
makes theirs
fight."
up forever, and you're just throwing this guy at me? No.
Yeah, like you have this connection with your party, and then it's like, "Do you want to swap?" It's like, "No, thank you. I will stay with who I have."
Also, technically, he's supposed to be human, but they did not make him look human.
He's very
No.
tall.
yeah. His proportions are kind of off.
Giraffe.
Yeah, it does look more like a drow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing Amaranth's good for is 1v1 Ozma. So,
And in the
Yeah, there is
randomizer.
there is a dumb thing Amon can do against Ozma.
What can he do?
It, literally solo it, and he can literally take next to no damage and just auto attack it to death.
I think
Jeez.
I've ever heard of that.
Yeah, he's a cheesy boy.
All right. Next point. Unless anyone else has anything else to add. Okay, Michelle's second negative point was the side quests that are not chocobo or friendly.
So, I mean, there are definitely side quests that I love. I mean, I really like the coffee one. I really like the Mognet. I love Chocobo and the friendly animals. Some of them, they're really easily missable. So much so that one of them wasn't found for 13 years. And some of the mini games, like the jump rope, were just
Oh God, yeah.
impossibly
Ah.
hard. And I wanted to be good
1,000.
at it, and I wanted to get better, but it was just not going to happen. And
That
so
was
there
worse
were-
than Final Fantasy X, like lightning bolts and that. Like,
Yep.
It was just hard.
It was just it was completely different from what the rest of the game was kind of going for. So I don't know. Some of these side quests were just so convoluted, and you had to be in the right place at the right time to find the right thing. Even with the coffee one, I like the coffee one. I like the idea of it, but if you miss grabbing that coffee with Kinna, like you're fucked. So there was, I mean, there are definitely a lot of side quests that I love, but definitely not all of them.
I would
Right.
agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember doing many, if any, side quests, to be honest, so I don't think I can really comment on my opinions on the
Because
side
they're
quests.
really missable.
Yeah. I mean,
The Hopal racing was alright. I did that for the
Yeah.
first time when it came out on PS4.
Like, you could miss the entirety of Daguerreo
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
if you don't happen to go there.
you guys are just saying all these names, and I'm like, yeah, did do that. Did do that.
Yeah, Daguerreo is an entire library town.
Yes.
Yeah.
and also,
In a mountain.
one of the quests there, you can literally get Excalibur.
That and Excalibur 2 is stupid.
Yeah.
That is only for speedrunners.
Or Raincore.
Yep.
Speedrunners.
True.
I've done it before, but it's hard.
Yeah, you gotta basically speedrun it.
But I think, given that I haven't played, like, I don't remember any side quests, I think I'd agree with Michelle that they're a bit missable. So,
They weren't clear.
Yeah, they aren't clear. The Salatio ones, trying to get that last Salatio was never clear for me. And it happens to be in the same spot as one of the others. Like, why would
Yep.
you do that
Oh
to me?
yeah.
Why would you do that?
Because there's
Yeah,
a
that
comparison
one-
between two of them.
I know, but for someone who isn't, like, I was 10 when I first started
Yeah.
that. That was never going to make sense to me.
Yeah, it's like hidden in the other Stelasios. Like it's hidden within the story. You have to like read them in like a certain order in order to
But
actually
if you
figure
turn them
out.
if you turn them into the lady, you can't read them anymore.
She gives them
Well,
back.
once you, well, yeah, you have to talk to her again, obviously. But like obviously you turn them in, you're like, okay, I'm done. But if you talk to her one more time, she's like, hey, they're the 13th, and then obviously she gives them all to you back, and then that's when
Oh,
you're
okay.
supposed to read it. But
I
it's
don't remember that part, but yeah.
Yeah, it's easily missable though, because it's like, all right, I turned in all 12 zodiacs, I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't mean.
Or the hammer, where that's the other thing with like
the
the
hammer.
thing. You have to
Yeah.
pick what you want. It's either I want the 10 armor or I want the bonus scene.
Yeah.
It's not a side quest, but one of the things is just it just reminded me of it. But one of the things that I really sort of disliked about I think it's just before the Limblum destruction scene. Is when you have to find all those like different. I think it's the 5 pieces and put them together in an order.
Yeah,
Like-
there's 6 pieces, but you can only pick 5 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
but
actually liked that one a lot.
I
Yeah.
But
I
that's-
couldn't.
It's a retelling. It's a retelling of what? Final Fantasy
Final
3?
Fantasy
Two.
Final Fantasy 2.
Just two.
I remember though
Yeah,
because
okay.
I couldn't find it, so I just went on, and then to the point of someone was just like, "You have to go back and get it." So I had to reload my save, and someone told me exactly where it was. But it's just one of those things where it's kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't find it, and then not that I was annoyed at someone for telling me to go back for it. But whenever you sort of get told to do something, it kind of leaves a bit bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's God, what was I gonna say? I think it is a PS1 game, so we do have to remember that they didn't have kind of the here's your side quest little bubble, here's where you can go, here's where you can check it. That didn't exist back then. But at the same time, with 7's side quests, I knew where they all were. I knew how to get to them. Like, only a couple were missable, but they kind of let you know that it would be missable, whereas 9 does not do that for you.
Yeah, and I think something else that 7 has that might have been beneficial, I don't know whether necessarily there, but just in general sometimes, it's the whole thing about being able to see all the exits and all the stuff you can interact with at that button. Like, I tried not
Yeah.
to use it too much in 7, but when I needed it, it was there, whereas 9 doesn't have anything like that. Also,
9 just points at Zidane and says, haha, fuck you, I'm not going to tell you where the doors are.
another thing, which is not really related to this, but I feel like I should bring it up now. Nobody decided to tell me until I was fighting Necron that you can heal all of your party at once. I was told
Oh,
this by Andy, Muffs of the Half, who found me during my last Final Fantasy stream because he was impressed that I was going through the final bosses with Bio. But nobody told me that you could select everyone until the final fight. And
I did.
I mean, I just kind of figured that out on my own. I didn't think it needed to be told.
Also, I could talk about, while talking about me missing things, dashing. I didn't realise how to dash until the blooming, where you're being chased by that thing through is it Garganru? I can't remember. But it was after the it was after the bit where you're rushing to save Garnet, and it made me laugh
Were you
because
using a controller?
yeah, I was.
Were you using the joystick?
Yeah.
Huh. Because the joystick automatically, if you push it far enough, it will run. So it may have been because you were doing it on computer.
There is, even if I believe you can set it to auto 1, which means if you put the stick all the way forward, it can sometimes set it to. I think the joysticks want it to walk for the Steam version, which is very weird.
Yes, I'd say that's a Steam issue.
Yeah, but it was like, I remember that though, like, not realising that you just had to press the cancel button to run. So when I was trying to save Garnet in that, like, timed mission, I'm just like, they're like, come on, we must hurry. I'm just there walking. But yeah. And also, like, the thing about the healing all, like, I don't think I'd have minded if someone told me that. I think that's the sort of thing where It's like with them when Michelle was playing 8 and that speedrunner came in and they told them about killing the monsters on the ship with the same color, like one after another. Like
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah.
that's the sort of thing that
You could get through the game without auto healing everyone. You can't get past those aliens.
yeah.
Oh, I did it as
But
a
I don't know if I could have done the Necron fight without being able to auto heal everyone. That was definitely a thing, and I feel like it would have helped in some other fights as well if I didn't know about it. But anyway, we're talking about side quests, not controls and stuff. But I remembered, so I brought it up. So should we move on to Michelle's final negative point then?
Yeah.
Okay, Michelle's final negative point. I forgot I have to click into the presentation every time. Is trance timing, which is apparently something someone else brought up. I
Yeah,
can't
that
remember
was
who
mine.
Yeah, it was you. So,
Alright, then I will leave it to Guar because I have another one that I thought of while we were talking, and I was like, I hate this way more. And it's not technically the game's fault, but the motherfucking game guide.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have that in
Final
front of me.
Fantasy
It's
IX.
horrible.
It is
Or
the
if you want to know how
it is
bad the
worst
game
thing.
it is, go to playonline.com.
Yep.
PlayOnline.com is gone.
Yep.
It doesn't exist anymore, so you're fucked.
I bought your book so I didn't have to go online. Like
Yup.
everything should be in the book.
It's,
Yep, it's like it
I
gives
wouldn't say
you
it's not
the
the worst
most
game guide.
basic of basics, and then it's just like if you actually want to know how to do something, go online. I'm like, why?
I
Why?
feel very young right now because I've never had a game guide book for a game.
Aww.
At least
They still make them.
They
yeah,
do.
they do.
Not as
At
many,
least
but
At least it's not the worst game guide because at least it's got the basics right. The
Yeah.
Breath of Fire 3's game guide actually lied to people and caused so many theories about it later on.
Really?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
think it was just the fact that that was back when you had to take up the phone line to go online, so you
Mhm.
couldn't just check whenever you
Yeah.
wanted to.
It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't super easy to get online back then.
No, it was
So-
not. You did not have your phone.
So were these game guides made by the developer, or made by the developing company, or were they made by someone else?
No,
they're
it's
made by
Brady
someone
Games,
else.
but
No,
still.
there was several different companies that did game guides, but yeah,
but it was the official game guide.
Ah, okay.
Mhm.
I see. Well, see, this is new to me, so I'm asking questions. But yeah,
That's fine. Brady Games can suck it sometimes.
I think
Yeah, we'll call it an official guide. Yeah, we'll call it. We'll put air quotes around that one though.
Oh yeah.
yeah, I think there are actually some game guides for the Harry Potter games, which might be worth looking into because of my speedrun and stuff. But yeah,
yeah. Just be wary. Some of them can be really, really bad.
yeah.
God bless GameFAQs.com.
Oh
Yeah.
hell yeah.
All right, so let's move into Guar's points then. And I think I can't remember what trance timing is. Or trance timing won't be on Guar's page because it was mentioned by Michelle. So Guar, do you want to start off by talking about trance timing?
So yeah, they couldn't have picked like a worse like ultimate ability, like a worse way to implement an ultimate ability. Like at least Final Fantasy VII, you can choose when you want to use it. This is just, I mean, I get it. It connects well into the story. How there's a rush of emotion, but you don't get to choose when you want to use it. So if I want to use it to like in a boss battle, I have to then do like random encounters before the boss battle to build up the gauge, like build it up enough so that way it fills in the boss battle. It's just like,
But don't accidentally use it right before the boss battle at the same time.
yeah, exactly. So it's just, oh my god, the lack of control with it is so pointless.
So
Right,
you,
it makes sense from a lore standpoint, but from a mechanic standpoint, it's terrible.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
think the frustration just overweighs the attention to detail on that one.
Right.
I just saw it, but I was like, yeah, it's not the best mechanic, but I just go, it's like, cool, I got it.
yeah.
So be it.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of the the pep up thing in 11, Dragon Quest 11.
Yeah.
Because I remember I remember Proxy was doing, Michelle probably knows this quest, the one where you have to kill a certain cactus outside of, not Gallopolis, what's it called? The place where you meet Sylvander. No.
It's Gallopolis.
Gallopolis,
Yeah, it's got
Yeah,
Gallop,
you're right.
Gallop Horse, yeah. That she was trying to do that, and she was literally saying, I'll show you the clip later, she was literally going, please pep up, and then it switches to Eric and he peps up and she's like, yes! But it's like, that randomness of it, and it sort of feels the same in 9, the way that...
You have to not depend on it. Which,
Yeah, pretty much.
again, kind of goes against the point, is that you're trying to show that emotions are important, and so you want to have these trances, but it makes you just not care.
Yeah, it's almost
Yeah,
like when they pop
didn't-
up, it's just a added bonus. You're like, oh, good.
I didn't implement it into my strategy after a while. It's just like, I'm not gonna, bother trying to build it up before a boss battle. If it happens, it happens. If not, whatever. But
Yeah, I think...
Right, and it's like the surge of emotion you get is the exact opposite whenever it happens, because you're like, well, screw this.
I got it just as someone else just killed the fun enemy. Now I've got no chance.
Yeah, it kind of... I prefer the way that 10 does stuff like that without the overdrives. That's
Yeah.
much, much easier to understand how it works. You can also pick how you want it to go up as well in 10, which I think is a really well done mechanic, which is, I think, sort of... If 9 had had something similar to that, I think it would have been better.
yeah.
In that regard. Okay, do we want to move on to Koala's second negative point?
It was one we touched up on though.
Some characters aren't fleshed out.
Like
Yeah.
Freya, Amaranth.
Yeah. It's kind of going into one of mine as well.
Like there's only a handful of characters that actually are have in-depth backstories, and yeah, it just feels like they've forgotten a lot of characters. It's just I did not really care so much about Freya and her and Fratley really. And yeah, it was
They
nice. to see
should have
that-
gotten Makoto to have some more importance.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was slapped on there in the end.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like a lot of the characters got the Final Fantasy VII, the original Final Fantasy VII treatment, where they just
Oh
got
yeah.
invited into the game, and
Hey, Sith.
there you go. It just sucks, but hey,
I agree with it. I mean, they're kind of
Yeah.
they do feel like the optional characters in 7. It's just
Yeah, I never
No.
cared about Vincent. I also
Yuffie
wasn't
was
into
cool.
vampires, but
yeah. I mean, Yuffie
But
was
it's
cool 'cause
like-
she at least had like her own little section, but I mean, you had a little bit with Quina, like a very tiny bit with Freya, and Amaranth had like literally nothing. It was just one scene, a flashback scene. Like,
Yeah, and
Yeah, it
then
was-
too, like, go ahead.
there you go.
No, I was just gonna say, like, too, like, if you really think about it, like, the story with Freya and Fratley is like so tragic, and it's like, here's the tragedy, then here's the resolution. There's no in between, like what Michelle was saying earlier, like her second act. Like, it's like during the ending, yeah, you get that closure, but throughout the rest of the game, there's no explanation of how we led up to that closure.
Yeah.
right. And the fact that he's like, I gotta protect Bermesia, it's like, well, maybe he could have gone along with you, and you could have like switched out between the two of them, which would have been kind of cool. Or just, I don't know, anything in Act 2 with her would have helped.
Or at least have Fratley make another appearance at some point, like
Right.
something. Like, you could have just completely forgot about Freya in the last bit, and it really wouldn't have mattered.
I mean, you already
Yeah.
forgot about her once. Weren't, weren't.
Oh. Where did Michelle go?
there you go.
As I exited out by accident.
Oops.
No.
And it's like, and then too with like
hit my
Amaranth, it's
hand,
like, yeah, like with Amaran, it's like he's like, I hate you, and Zidane's like,
Okay.
Freya?
Yeah. Alright, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he could have at least maybe remembered him. Like, come on now, Zidane.
Alright, okay. Any other
I mean,
points
how many
on this
blue
one?
lizard men do you see in your life?
Exactly.
Draft
I mean,
man.
some of the hippo people.
If anything, that hair should have stood out.
Yeah, you'd think.
Alright, shall we move on to the next point then? God's
Yeah,
third negative point, which is the steal mechanic.
I mean, I'm not huge into stealing in games, but when you try to, like, in subsequent playthroughs, when I tried to get, like, say, the fairy flute, for instance, it's like you have to steal. It's like such a low chance to get it. And yeah, a lot of those items you can get, later on in the game, but it's just if you want to get it like right then, it's just a massive pain in the ass to try and do it.
Well, you
For
don't
me,
like
I
you don't
think
like
this-
having two formulas.
For me,
Oh,
it was
God.
just this game taught me that in every other JRPG, I need to steal all the time, no matter
Yeah.
what.
The steal mechanic for Final Fantasy 9 is not the worst one I've been involved with. The worst one is actually with one of my actual favorite games, and that is Breath of Fire 3.
I've played that one.
Its steal mechanic is awful. A lot of the ultimate equipment you have to steal or get it as a drop, and
Oh, God.
both rates are atrocious.
I will say I was struggling to think of a third thing, and that was the only thing I could come up with was the steal.
I just love like the idea of little 10-year-old Michelle being like, I need to steal everything. Like,
Hell
Goes
yeah.
into a supermarket.
yeah.
That's why I was like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, Riku, let's go. Stealing
Right.
things.
I mean, like, it's crazy, like, because obviously, like, a lot of people don't know the steal mechanic. It's actually two hidden formulas. So there's a formula that's based on, I believe, luck or spirit, and that is the first roll is can you steal, and then literally the second one is complete RNG of what item you will actually get.
Yup. RNG was so nice to be
Right,
remembered, so.
if I remember right, it's luck.
Is there a weight to each
I
item?
think so.
Or
There is a slight weight to it. Because some ones are classed as the rare steel, there's one that's the middle steel, and then there's the common steel.
yeah. I mean, I never really used the steal mechanic, and even once I tried 9, and the first time I actually used the steal mechanic properly was when I was doing some medal farming in Dragon Quest XI, and that sort of made me realise that it is usable. So I've tried to use it in other games, but I don't really like using it because I almost prefer doing full on it almost feels a bit like a waste of a turn because I don't think I've probably seen the rewards that it can reap. So yeah.
I'd say it's more important on bosses for the most part in the majority of games, but there are a few occasions where you want to steal off of just random enemies because something they give you is literally amazing.
Yeah.
And for me, I think it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like a challenge mode. If I go without trying to steal everything from every boss, I'm like, oh, I've just gone through this game way too fast, too easy.
Fair enough.
I like it when they can combine, say, Mug. Is it Mug? That way you attack and
Yeah.
steal at the same time.
Yeah, that's Mug.
Yeah, I like when they can, when they combine an attack with the steal, then it doesn't feel completely
And then later you
wasted.
get Bandit, and it gives you higher chance of stealing. And
Yeah, Bandit was so useful.
Yeah. Alright. So, should we move on to... It's Raincore next, isn't it? His points, I think.
I believe so.
So, Raincore's negatives. Raincore's first negative is RNG Hellscape, which I think we touched on a bit there, but Raincore?
The game entirely is an RNG loss, if you really boil it down. Let's be real. And I really experienced this mostly too whenever I got to the speed run to get the Excalibur, because literally you're relying on RNG for your attack rolls for literally every portion to try and get through it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't encounter Tonberries my entire run of the race, but Mage did, and that slowed his ass down.
Right.
Very
Fun,
much.
but, you
Yeah.
know.
But yeah, I agree there is a lot of RNG, but I feel like that's kind of just a thing with a lot of RPGs, which I think, like, it's something I've realised more since been, like, looking into and watching some of Neon's runs of 7, like, realising just how much RNG there is in these sorts of games.
Right.
There are a few RPGs that have next to no RNG.
Oh.
One of which
I mean, like,
is my true favourite game, and that is Grandia.
Oh yeah, that was a good game.
Yeah.
What's Abe's
but
favourite?
like obviously, like Ace and Miney, you were both there for like Excalibur 2, and how horrid and horrendous Disc 1 treated me on RNG
Oh,
Hellscape.
Yeah.
Yeah. Disc 1, your RNG was atrocious.
Yeah, for the 20th, it was, wasn't it? 20th anniversary of 9, Raincore decided to do an Excalibur 2 run, which was interesting. He got it. Well, he did something that some people might not have expected. I still haven't watched that clip, you know. I still haven't watched those bloody... Send me those clips again, Afe. I need to watch them later. I still can't believe I haven't watched them yet. It was like, what, a few months back now?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so I got the Excalibur 2, and I immediately went back to Alexandria, where it all started, and I threw it.
Alright, so, any more points on RNG Hellscape? No?
I can't say I ever came across anything like that besides the steel.
Alright, so next point is the card game, which we've kind of touched on, but Renko, why do you dislike the card game so much?
All right, so the main thing with the card game for me is because of the fact that no matter what the card, so you have to know hexadecimal to fully understand it, and there's a lot of hidden mechanics that aren't even in there. So for me, the issue with it is your max level card could be identical to somebody else's max level card, but that power and defense rating is actually like a plus or minus 15 to 20. So like your max level could have like a power of 88 and their max level could have a power of 98 and they win, and you're sitting here as the player and you're like, what the hell is going on? And like, why is this happening? I literally have the strongest card and I'm losing to a weaker card because their RNG of their card happens to be better than yours.
Yeah, and there's, I'll just add on to that, the HP values of each card. There's no actual like definitive stat for it, but it can literally just be anywhere from 1 to anywhere up to 255.
Yep.
Ooh.
So no matter what you do, it's still, no matter how powerful your deck is, the game is still truly RNG based, which is not how a card game should work in my opinion. So that's kind of where it falls down for me.
That's fair enough. I didn't realize it was still so RNG based, to be honest.
Yeah, it's incredibly RNG.
Anyone got anything else to add about the card
Yeah,
game?
it's definitely a D&D roll for your stats of the card that already has stats kind of thing.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, pretty much.
Okay. Next point. Well, the final point from Raincore's negative list. As we sort of touched on this earlier, but Necros is the final boss. Necron as the final boss.
Necron.
Who's Necron?
Yeah, so for me, like Necron, like I kind of get it a little bit, but so I think a lot of it, and this is in my personal opinion, of course. So it's a PS1 era SquareSoft JRPG. Every single PS1 JRPG SquareSoft game was very quickly turned over. They are all literally like they will Square will fully admit it. They are all unfinished. So there was no real resolution or rhyme or reason to certain things in the games, and I kind of feel like that's why Necron was just kind of like, here he is. You know, it's like every PS1 JRPG. You know, start out quest, let's go to a party, ending fight God. Like, and like I feel like it could have been like, you know, a different resolution after Kuja than Necron. I feel like that was kind of rushed and not quite done right.
Yeah, that's something I would agree with.
All right, let me ask you this because I'm kind of curious. I'll ask the question and I'll let A finish his point and then we'll talk about it. Forgetting about the connection between the game and Necron, how do you feel about the Necron fight on its own as a fight? But if you finish your point first, and then
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like they could have, literally, because it's like the whole area is crystal memory, and the fact that Garland guides you through it, they could have easily brought Garland back as like a bigger, stronger baddie as a whole over Necron. It seems a bit better.
I honestly forgot about him until you just mentioned him, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. It literally guides you through Memoria.
Yep.
But yeah, Necron fight on its own. What do you think?
Obviously, it's brutal, and you know, much like a lot of the stuff with the game, it's your first playthrough, you're gonna do it a bunch of times because you're gonna learn the fight, and it's brutal, obviously, but for good reason. I feel like it's like it has to be because this is it. You're trying to defy. At this point, you're defying death. So I feel like it has to be that brutal.
And lots of status effects, lots of restarting over and over again with it.
There was instant death, if I remember right.
I think
I
thought it was like Grand Cross, like after Grand Cross.
It gives you all the status effects,
yeah.
But it's like,
and if you didn't get the trap healed up, then you were gonna die like pretty much next round.
It's interesting though because the Necron fight made me use like a load of things I'd never really touched before, mainly because I was advised to by Andy in my chat. But it was like these things that I'd never really looked at before. I actually had to dig them out and use them, which in a way I think it's kind of good that, you know, the game was making me pull out these abilities, but at the same time I kind of wish I'd had a reason to do it sooner. If that makes sense. Like it felt a bit like, you know, I had all this stuff, but I mean, you guys know I went through most of the game up to, I don't think I beat Kuja with Bio, but I think I did. I can't remember. Someone will know, but I got to at least I beat the boss before Kuja with Bio as my main attack. And that I mean,
for me, like, I know it was one of your negative points, but the ability system, like, that would have been a positive point for me. Because I feel like Final Fantasy IX's ability system was the best in the entire series. It's my personal opinion. I love how they did it. And it kind of like, but the one downfall for it is you really have to hit the select button and read up on them to know exactly what equipment protects you against certain things, what abilities do what in detail. You have to have some of that detail in order to fully understand it.
And it's not something that is actually pointed out to you either. It's just something you find out purely by accident.
Yep.
Yeah. I think again.
One thing I do like about Necron as the final boss is not even really Necron himself. It's the scene where whoever you pick as your party, the people giving their lives to you of the other party members,
giving you their force and power. Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a cool little scene. I also like the fact that gives you your health back, because I remember I think one of the times I got through the Kuja fight, I was on like 1-1-1-1, and I was like, oh god. I was like, thank god it gives you your health back, because otherwise I would have been screwed on the Necron fight, dead immediately. But yeah. Also another thing I kind of like about Necron, unlike a certain other fight at the end of 7, is it's kind of very easy to tell sometimes when he's dead. At least I find it kind of It was like there was still that denial in my head because like I'd been doing it for so long, but also at the same time I was like, yeah, that's a death animation. Whereas with the, I'm not going to say the name because it's, they were talking about 9 here, but that fight at the end of 7, it took me a lot longer to realize he was actually dead. If that makes sense. But I think he does have a cool death animation as well. Necron does.
Yeah.
The whole like Colosseum, for want of a better word, like being destroyed around you. I think that's a really cool thing. But yeah, right. So if that's the last we want to talk about of Necron, unless anyone else has any points to bring up, I think we can move on to Abe's negative points.
Yeah.
The first of which is there's
Be
no
right back
real.
because I got my technician here, by the way, guys. So I'll be right back.
Okay.
Right.
The first negative point is there's no real puzzles in the game.
Yeah, it's just like, to break up the humdrum in some of the like dungeon areas. It's like there's no like puzzles to break up the monotony of just traversing them. It's just very much just go through the dungeon, maybe fight a boss at the end. Enjoy.
Yeah, I think the only ones you really get are like in Pandemonium, and those are really just not even puzzles so much as just like figuring out how it works.
Pandemonium and kind of towards the end. It's about
I want to say Kuja's Palace didn't have some.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
I still remember the blooming candle one that gave Mage so much trouble.
And then you have the one with the I can't think of the name of this now. The underground path you go to get to the outer continent.
Oh, Gargamoo?
Falsaru.
Yeah, that was an interesting one.
There you go, Falsaru.
Falsaru, that's it.
I knew it was a woo.
Yeah, that had a little bit of a puzzle with with the switches and all that.
Mm.
I mean, they weren't like in-depth puzzles, but there was some there.
Yeah.
They didn't start getting like harder until you had to do the frickin' Sid one with the getting past the hedgehog pie and doing the weights, but.
Yeah, the only one that really caused me trouble when I first played was the one in Pandemonium, where you had to figure out the lift whole where it had to be system-wise. That's the only one that really caused me trouble when I first played. But other than that, I didn't really struggle with any of the puzzles.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I think it's got a decent amount of puzzles, but I think they're like a lot of them are not puzzles, but they're sort of they're sort of I don't know how to say this. I can see where you're coming from, if that makes sense. But I still do feel like there's a lot of decent puzzles in the game.
Yeah, it's just I like something to just break up the monotony of just going through each dungeon area.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah.
Alright, next negative point was why the party working together. I sort of summarised that.
It's like, for most of the characters, there's no good reason for them to be working together. It's like, there's bits for Zane to be working with Garnet, because he idolizes her. There's reason for Steiner to be there, because he wants to protect Garnet, because it's his job. Vivi, for the most part, there's no real reason for him to be with the party. Freya, there's no real reason. Frenna, no reason. Aiko, no. Amryn, not really.
Well, I can see
I
Aiko.
kind of disagree with some of those.
Yeah, I agree.
Like Aiko, she's the last one in her tribe. She's alone, so obviously she's gonna want to go out with, well, what we later learn to be the only other summoner besides her alive.
And Vivi's kind of like on his own path that happens to coincide with theirs because he's trying to find out about the black mages. Like,
yeah.
At first he was accidentally with them, but then when they got to Dolly, it was just like, oh fuck.
Yeah, it's just there's no real link for him to be in the party. He wants to find out more about it, but after it's found out, there's no real reason for him to be in the party anymore.
Yeah, there is, to keep going to figure out why the black mages were made.
Yeah.
But that was found out. Just to be creations of war. To get rid of the Guardian souls.
I think after that, I mean, there's really no reason for him to leave after that because he's been with the party for so long. I mean,
I think he was also just trying to find out, like, meet Kuja and figure out, like, why the fuck would he do this besides having these
Yeah.
soldiers of war. I think he wanted more depth into it than just, oh, hey, I was made as a soldier. He's like, there's got to be more.
Yeah, I think when Kuja and Vivi met, that scene was quite. I quite enjoyed that.
I mean, Queen is a kind of
Yeah.
a weak one. She just wants to go around and eat food.
To
Freya,
be fair, you don't even get Quina. You can choose to not get Kina until you have to go to the Fossil Rue.
yeah, I always got him her early, but yeah, that's when you absolutely have to get her.
Yeah, I was basically guided to get her.
Yeah,
Freya is one that she could honestly leave the party for a bit and come back at the end, and it'd be fine. After the events of Clara, like, what's the point of her being there? Oh, I guess. Oh, she didn't want to stay back and help. Did she help with Alexandria when it got attacked?
he stayed back and guarded Garnet with Beatrix and Steiner.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I can see her wanting to defend Alexandria because she's already seen what happened to Bermesia and Clara. No, I guess anyone's Amaranth. I mean, what the hell?
I mean, we all know our opinions on, apart from Ace, our opinions on Amaranth.
Yeah.
It's fine. I know a lot of people don't like him.
But, yeah. Anything else you want to add to that point, Ace? Or move on to your third and final point?
The next one kind of links into it. It's in with this one, actually.
And it's not the best story.
Yeah, it is that you can take out so many NPCs and party members, and you can still get to the same story arc.
Well, so which NPCs are you talking about?
It's like some of the ones like Makoto, and for example, she can be completely gone from it, and you still have the same like storyline for Zidane. She doesn't add much of anything at all, in my opinion.
Okay, but that's a single character versus the overarching story, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like a lot of the NPCs don't really add too much to the story.
But then some of them really do, though. I mean, there's just a lot of NPCs.
As I said, you can take out quite a few of them, and they don't add much. As well as certain party members that don't add much, and then you can literally just take them out after that point, and the story's basically the same.
Do you have any other examples?
I did have a list, which I've misplaced, of literally NPCs that you could literally take out the game and it would be exactly the same, but I misplaced it because I've been in a mad rush today. So sorry about that.
It's alright.
That's okay.
But I do think it's an interesting point. But I think it's sort of a good thing in a sense that the world is so big. There's a lot of information. I think as well that links back as well to the 80s. There's a lot of stuff that you can learn about this world, but you don't have to, which I think is the good thing. Like there's...
Yeah, I mean, they have all that history about the different Limblom Wars and about, like, who's in these statues in the town. Like, they give you their entire backstory, if you look. It's just for fun, though.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, the armaments of the SIDS, they're actually the certain armaments that are iconic to certain SIDS of prior Final Fantasies.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other points?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, but yeah, it's like you can pull quite a few characters out of the story, and you still get the same point. It's basically what I'm trying to bring out.
Okay. Well, the next, if we're happy to move on, the next point is where we gave, I gave our contributors 6 categories, I think it was. out of
Yeah.
to give a ranking out of 5. Now, the way this is going to work is I'm going to reveal each person's full everyone's ranking for each category as we go, and then we can all sort of sit and talk about it. Now, the first category we decided upon was story, and for that I gave it 5 Coupos. For story, Michelle gave it 5 Moogles, not Coopers, but you can call them both. Gua gave the story 5 Moogles. Raincore gave the story 5 Moogles. And Ape gave the story 3 Moogles. Which I think makes sense given what you've said today about your opinions on the story. And we've kind of touched a lot on the story, but why... Okay, let me ask Michelle and Gua, and I know Raincore's not here, but if he was here I'd ask him, why 5? Why is it so good that it's a 5 for you?
Don't go first,
I think
Marsh?
it's sure. Yeah, I think it's just the story has the emotions of the characters, and it really kind of drives them to keep going. And it's not like oh well, this town had this thing, now you need to go to this town. There was always like a reason to keep moving, and there was always something new to find and new to learn as you're going along the story. And then there's parts that kind of link to the beginning. There's that payoff with the lead up and payoff, and I just kind of I could seriously just sit down and read it as a book easily.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was, I like the pacing of it. I liked the world itself, all the various locations you visit. They're all very beautiful. I liked the themes that the game touched on. It really kind of made me question kind of death as well. What does it mean to die, and how should you end up living your life, with that in mind. Yeah, I mean, and it was a great mix of really really dark moments like Clara being destroyed, and then like really really light moments like in Dale or what else was there, or like Maiden Sare. Yeah, it was just I just thought the pacing was really nice. Like it was just like 'cause my favorite part is just going looking back to those relaxing moments and just kind of enjoying those.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think those are some good points. For me, I think I just really enjoyed the story and where it goes, what it does. I think most of the characters have a really well-rounded story. I love Vivi. I love the journey Garnet goes on. Steiner, as you know, I really like him. I think it's just a good story about like them sort of not growing up. I don't think that's quite the way to describe it, but like I think Garnet in particular maybe had a bit of like not obliviousness, but like
Naive.
Yeah, naive. And I think the journey that she went on in the game sort of really grew her as a person. I think it grew all the characters, even if it's not portrayed in the best way for some of them.
Yeah.
But yeah. Alright, Eighth. Why? I know you kind of touched on it a lot, but why not so much?
I just feel that in a lot of ways that it could have been a little bit more portrayed. That mostly, like, a lot of it for me is like the story in some aspects can be a little bit disjointed, but not massively, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
To the point where the ending section where you get to Necron, there's literally no description of it whatsoever. There's no like prelude to that him potentially being like the big bad that you're going to face. It feels like it's like thrown in as suddenly you got to fight this now. It's like, okay, it just feels like there's no story relevance for it to be there, other than maybe it's the will of the crystal, so to speak.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, the story isn't bad. It feels a little bit disjointed in some aspects where it could have been better, which maybe a remake could potentially touch up upon. But other than that, it's not awful, which is why I didn't rate it lower. But it could be better.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Okay. Any concluding points on the story before we move on?
You can move on.
Alright, next category is the characters, or character. And for this, I gave 4 Moogles. Michelle gave it 4 Moogles. Gua gave it 4 Moogles. Rancor gave it 4.5 Moogles. And Afe gave it 3 Moogles. So, I think, again, we're all kind of agreeing. Interesting though that Rancor's gone 4.5. I wish he was here to ask him why he pushes up that half a little bit. But, okay, I think we'll go in reverse this time. Afe, why 3? Why not 4 like the rest of us?
A lot of characters didn't get a lot of growth. It's like, we touched on it earlier. It's like, Freya got a little bit right at the very beginning, then nothing. Ammon, you got one scene, then nothing. So it's just feel like you couldn't really get attached to them, so to speak. But the characters in general, when they were in combat, I really liked how they played out. Even though Aiko and Garnet were technically the same character, just kind of swapped in how they were. Because Aiko's technically the white mage, while Garnet is the summoner, because of how their trance works. Yeah, they're not awful, but their growth is what pulled it down for me.
Fair enough. Okay.
So, for me, I mean, I liked all the characters except for, I mean, I liked Freya, but I wish there was just more to her story. Like, it just felt like after a while she was there. Obviously, you know, Amaranth. So this is all stuff we've touched on previously. But yeah, it's just the characters that they fleshed out were really well done. I really enjoyed them. Then there's just others that kind of lagged behind them in certain ways.
Alright, let me ask you this. Would you rather have the characters as they are now, or have the characters that you feel are less fleshed out, more fleshed out, but at the cost of the other characters that you currently feel are well fleshed out?
No, I would rather have... No, yeah, I'd rather have it as it is now. I don't really care enough about Amaranth to have them flesh him out more at the cost of others.
Fair enough. Michelle?
Flesh him out by getting rid of him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's he's the 5th Moogle right there. Just get him gone and we're good.
He's honestly one of the strongest if you're going for like a more magical based party, because
In terms of
You can make
combat,
another
I
character
like...
stronger. I mean, shit.
I mean, yeah, if you're trying to use no items and want to refill your MP, his trance chakra ability just basically means here's a slight heal with some MP regenerative. Really,
I did him as, character battle. I mean, he was very useful. I remember the first time I beat the game was with him. Story wise, that's why I gave it a 4, because combat wise, liked all the characters. Story wise, there were some that were lacking.
Yeah, I think I'd agree on the most part. Like, Amaranth still feels like a very forced character. Like, hey, the whole thing we've talked about it before, but the whole thing about like, hey, you're about to go into this big fight. Do you want to sort this character in? No, because and as well, it's not even like you want to take some time out and try and learn about him and like learn his character, because it's like, you've been building me up to this moment. I'm not suddenly going to stop and set up a character. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of... I think maybe if they'd introduced him in a slightly better place, I might like him a bit more. Maybe. But
Yeah.
I think, and then as well, they're not using him in that fight. You know, you kind of like he just sort of gets put to one side, and you kind of forget about him.
Yeah,
To
I
be
think
honest.
a better place to introduce him is alongside Lani at Fossil Woo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that way you at least get some kind of interaction with him.
I think we should have experienced ourselves the making Amaranth be a guy on the run. Because if we had done that ourselves, I would have felt a little more connection.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
basically
point.
not start off directly as Zidane on the airship, for example.
Or even just move it to a different point in time.
Mm.
Make him the enemy yourself through the plot and then experience him later.
Yeah, that would work.
Yeah. Alright. Any other points on characters? I suppose we've sort of talked a bit about negative, so positive characters.
I mean, Vivi is always a positive.
Definitely. I think Vivi, I think we said this before, but I think Vivi is one of the most recognised characters from the Final Fantasy series as a whole, as well as
Yeah.
just...
The
Also,
other-
Stiltskin is a badass.
Yeah,
But
the other one being Beatrix, or Beatrix.
yeah. Which actually leads into another point I was going to say. Obviously, we've talked a lot about main characters, like party characters, but any characters that are not part of the main party the party that you guys particularly like or dislike for any reason?
Beatrix is a big one. Really like Beatrix, and her growth arc, really well done for me.
Yeah, I like her arc. I like Ruby a bit, like even though she's not
Yeah.
major's character. I think the little involvement that she has, like I think doesn't she have a scene with Vivi at one point?
Yes, he does. One
Yeah.
or two.
And I quite like that scene. I
Yeah.
remember quite liking that scene.
I like Bobby Corwin.
Oh, Bobby Corwin!
Yeah.
How can we not talk about Bobby Corwin? Okay,
Corwin.
the name comes from 5 actually, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Boko, who
Okay.
I met Boko and Bart's in World of Final Fantasy, and I was like, oh my god, it's Boko! I was like, it's so cute.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
Blank is my dear love.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
like,
Blank
you
and Marcus.
you
I was
have
going
a
to say Tantalus,
But not
the
Cinna,
Tantalus
'cause he
members
needs to
in
watch his
general.
face.
Yeah. And I really like what they did with Sid.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
like they instead of just being like, here's another Sid, they were like, okay, he's flawed. We showed his flaws. We've showed him growing as well.
yeah.
He got to be multiple animals. It was awesome.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
still love that. You want to put your emote in my chat for a minute? Because I haven't got I need to put... Hang on, let me put an emote screen on the screen and spam your emote, your guac emote.
I used to have it, but I think my gifts I've got is run out.
Right. Let me just get the emote screen. Where is it?
I got you, boo.
Emote wall, there it is. Copy. Paste. Right. Put it in the right place because it's sort of skewy because of the speedrun stuff. Because it ends up covering certain things that I can't have covered. Right. Spam some guacs now. There we go. If I do...
I don't see any.
I'll come up in a
I
minute.
don't see any anyway.
They go... Oh, I know why they don't come up. That's why. There we go. Now they should... There we go. Now they come up.
Alright, that's all.
It's because I was in studio mode. But yeah, I like Sid. Sid's an interesting character, and I love like the little dialogue interruptions that he has when he's a Moogle or when he's a frog. I love those the interruptions they do. They're always fun to read. Yeah, the animated emotes don't animate on the emote screen. It's weird.
I know.
They just sort of look weird. Okay, so I think we can move on from characters. Unless anyone else has any final points to say.
Nope, I'm good.
Nope.
Right, next category is gameplay. And for gameplay, Miney gives the game 3.5 Moogles. For gameplay, Michelle gives it 5 Moogles. Goyle gives it 4 Moogles. Raingor gives it 4.5 Moogles, and Ape gives it 5 Moogles. Did you give it 5, Ape?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, that feels surprising given, your up and down about the rest of stuff. But this is the most diverse one, I think, for us. Like, I don't think any of us have said the same, apart from Michelle and Ape. None of us have said the same number. So, alright. I'll start with Michelle and Ape this time. Why 5?
I mean, you know how I feel about the ability system, and I really like turn-based. I like each of them having their own job, and I'm okay with random battles. I'm really cool with that. So it kind of just ticked every box for me.
Fair enough. Ape?
Yeah, I'm just adding to that. It's like it's really simple, yet at first glance, yet when you really delve into it, it's a really complex build without even realizing it. And that is what really drew me to the game at first, other than the whole art style, how it generally plays out. That kept me going through the majority of the game. It's like that little subtlety, while seeming simple but being completely complex, just took the gameplay to a complete different level.
Fair enough.
It doesn't have to be like I have to solve this little puzzle just to be like the master of this game. It's simple and effective, and that's all it has to be.
Yeah. Alright. Well, why not 5? What were you wanting for that 5th Moogle to be there?
So after more thought, I think I probably would have given it like a 4.5.
Okay.
Mainly because the trance system really just bothered me. Like, after experiencing so many other better systems, that's the one that would make it not perfect for me. But everything else with it, I enjoyed a lot.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So if the trance system was better, that would get you 5 Moogles.
Yes.
Okay. For me, 3.5. I don't want to give it 3 because 3 felt bad, but like I hadn't thought about the trance system really until it was brought up today when you guys sent me your stuff. Just scared my cat by flinging my pen at him. Sorry, mate. Yeah, the trance system. Also, as you guys know, I don't really enjoy the ability system. And I think also there was another thing, the synthesize thing. I just never really got into. And I know that's not the game's fault, but like, I don't know. So it just wasn't. There's still a lot of good things. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love the fact, as weird as this will sound, I love the fact that you can run from battles while doing stuff, because that is something I miss a lot in World of Final Fantasy, being able to run from a battle while still defending and doing attacks and whatnot. That is something I really miss from World of Final Fantasy. What was the other thing? I really love having a party of 4, because I think in 7 you don't have a party of 4, do you?
No, it's a party of 3.
Party of 3, yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of...
it was the original games that had 4.
I do like having 4. Like, I think that's why it threw me so much when I switched to 10 and 7, having 3 party members, because I was used to 9 with 4, and I think I can balance a bit better with 4. Like, I can balance my roles a bit better when I have the option for 4 people.
But the thing with... I know it's a different game, but the thing with 10 is you could swap on the fly into the other characters, so it made it more tactically viable.
Yeah.
But with the others, you had to like think ahead a little bit. What will I need? Yeah.
But I do think that whole thing about is what gives it a lot of merit for me. That thing of being able to balance, because I like I say, mainly because I played Dragon Quest 11 first as my first RPG, and I'm pretty sure in that you can have a party of 4, can't you?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I've gotten used to balancing my party as a 4. So then when I go into 7, 10, World of Final Fantasy is a different thing because of the system and that, but going into having to balance it via 3 kind of threw me. So the fact that this one has a 4, I like that a lot. And I think just generally, I like the fact that there's areas that you can get to, and I think this is a general thing for most RPGs, because I've learnt this when I was playing with F5 with Ape. I learnt this the very bad way, but I like the fact that there's areas that you can go to, which you can go to, but you'll probably be annihilated because you're severely underleveled.
Mm-hmm.
Case in point, the castle dungeon. But from 5, but I like the fact that the game's so open like that, whereas, but you're gonna, you know what I mean? I like the idea of going into that, learning that, and being like, okay, because then it sort of sets yourself a goal in your head of like, I'd like to be able to come through this area, so I can sort of like work on that. I mean, granted, I never did go to that area that was above, where is it? The area that's with the dragons.
Oh, the area above Gizmaluke's grotto?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
I never did go back to
It's
there,
dangerous, Kupo.
Yep.
Yeah, you can do a little bit of level grinding there if you're very, very careful and a little bit lucky with a little bit of setup with Quina. You can literally very early on just limit glove it, and it will just insta kill it if Quina's at 1 HP.
Another thing that I think I wish was more prevalent in 9, having played 10 and 7, is the summons. I know that that's probably me not finding them, but like looking into it after the fact and learning there's so many summons in 9 that I just didn't find. I still don't even know how you get summons, but it's like, you know what I mean? I kind of want, because I love using summons in 10 and 7.
Hi, Dark Shadow.
Oh,
Play.
hey Dark Shadow. But that's the thing for me. It's like I wish the summons were more accessible as a new player.
Yeah, all the summons, apart from like 1 or 2, you get via the gemstones. There's a couple of other items that you get for the other summons, but primarily they're from gemstones.
It's
Okay.
the same way you learn abilities.
Okay. Well, that's probably why I didn't find them then. There was one other thing I wanted to mention. What was it? There's certain mechanics that they use sometimes which I like. Like, as much as it was a pain, the no magic zone, and I know that's not just a thing for 9, but I like that. Yeah, giving you the extra bit of challenge. The that castle, Ipsum Castle, whatever it's called, the one where it's got the right thing. I did not do that right at all. I think I cheesed it, but that was a whole interesting thing. The fact that, like, you know, there's like lots of little things like that. I think really sort of, I really enjoyed that part of the game. The fact there's lots of little, little things like that, little gameplay tweaks that you have to adjust to. And you adjust them by not taking 3 magic users to a no magic user. I'm never going to live that down, you know. That I know I keep bringing that up, but I just feel like I'm never going to live down. I thought for sure that Kuja would turn around and say you're being stupid or something like that for trying to take 3 magic users to a no magic zone. But no, he's just like, go on then. He's like, I want to see you suffer.
You made your choice. Live with it.
It looks like 46-minute boss fight. I literally spent days trying to do that boss fight. It was that point where I was like, do I give up on this game? And I was like, no, I'm liking it. I just need to not be stupid next time. And I remember bringing it up at the race, and everyone in chat was laughing at me. I'm like, yes, I know. But this was my first RPG, and it was the first time I'd heard of a no magic sign. And like I say, I thought Kuja would turn around and call me stupid, but I guess RPGs or earlier games don't have that safety net. Like I feel like another game would have that sort of a safety net. It's like, are you sure?
I'll give you a warning. It's not the only no magic zone in Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I'm aware that that's a common thing within Final Fantasy. I can't remember what game was it. I don't remember, but I know there is another game somewhere where that's a thing. But yeah, that's my sort of opinions on the gameplay. Should we move on then, unless anyone else has got any final points to mention?
We can move on.
Okay, next category was visuals. Now this one we've talked a bit about in depth. I gave it 5 Moogles. Michelle gave it 5 Moogles. This one's got the sound effects, honestly. Quad gave it 5 Moogles. Raincore gave it 5 Moogles. And Afe gave it 4 Moogles. So, Afe, Why are you so different from the rest of it? Well, not so different, but why not 5?
Yeah, how dare you
Like,
have a different
yeah.
opinion?
How dare you?
I mean, the FMVs are great, but some of the still backgrounds in some areas look very, very blurry, almost indistinguishable at times. So I couldn't quite give it a 5, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think
I mean, that's why the Moguri mod exists, because it didn't really
Yeah.
give it the attention it needed.
I've just had an idea actually about my Redux playthrough. I hadn't thought about before. Anyway, yeah, I can agree with that. I think the first overworld area, the forest is a little bit, it just looks a little bit. I mean, it is 2D, but you know what I mean. There's a few little things like that. Also, I think it kind of, even though I'm giving it 5, I think it kind of falls down in the sense of it's PS1. There's only so much they can do I think they do a really good job of what they've got, but it's a PS1. Even though, like I say, I've given it 5 Moogles, there's that caveat there, sort of thing.
And I play a lot of PS1 and older RPGs, and that's why I'm scoring it off of, comparing it to other RPGs in the same era and before. It's even back, say Tales of Fantasia, for example, which was SNES era, it did the the 2D drawn visuals that just stay put in a certain area better than in some ways than Final Fantasy 9 did.
Okay. Alright. Gua and Michelle, why 5? I know we've kind of touched on it a lot, but anything...
I mean, the cartoony faces give it the expressions, while the PS1 doesn't really show off the backgrounds as well. When you look at the original art of those backgrounds, they are drop dead gorgeous. And the FMVs are pretty. I mean, they're not perfect, but again, PS1 time. And just the overall aesthetics of the game is top notch for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. I really, really like the art style. That's why it was in one of my, 3 favorite things about it, or 3 positive things. I mean, yeah, it was just different than a lot of other games. I mean, as much as I love Legend of Dragoon, it's just nice to be able to go into a game that does fantasy really well with the art style. It kind of sucked me into the world more because it wasn't super realistic, or even somewhat realistic, kind of like with Final Fantasy 7 and 8.
Yeah, I also love the juxtaposition of the visuals compared to the story. It looks like this really not cutesy game, but it fools you with the juxtaposition of you think it's going to be a really light-hearted story, but no, the story goes to some dark places, and I think that sort of juxtaposition is really good, and I think that's why I think the story, I rate the story and the visuals so highly, because they work, even though they're opposites, they work in tandem with one another, which I think is very good for throwing the player through the loop for a loop, which then sort of gives the player a sort of feeling to how the characters are feeling, because they're going through a lot of loops with different things, so you sort of can empathise a bit more with the characters, I think, through the visuals, which is an unusual thing to say, but I would say that. Any more points on the visuals?
I don't think so.
I mean, we've kind of brushed up on a lot of these points throughout the general review. This is kind of like a polishing off sort of thing of the final.
Just a little bit of a summary, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, puzzles. I'm interested to see a score for this one, because I honestly can't remember it.
Yeah.
So, Miney
I'm probably going to get a big hate.
gave this 2 Koopos, or 2 Moogles. Michelle gave it 3. Goa gave it 4. Raincore gave it 3. And Ape gave it 1.
Yep.
So this is the one we're most divided on, because only Raincore and Michelle have a similarity, but we're all quite low. So
There's a wide range there.
let's start with.
I just feel like it's not a puzzle-heavy game, and
It's really
that's
not.
fine. But the puzzles that they have just kind of didn't really cut it
Yeah.
for me, especially Pandemonium.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. It's why I didn't weight it highly on this category. It's just, the puzzles that were there, I couldn't really class as a puzzle. The only one that I kind of could was the one in Pandemonium, but that's only just barely.
Okay. So what? Let me ask you all this question, but specifically A because he's the lowest. What could they have done differently to make you give them more Moogles?
So it didn't have to be like many more, but more diverse. There's slightly more challenging puzzles to break up some of the monotony and going through some of the dungeon areas. It didn't have to be, as I said, didn't have to be too complex. It just needed to do more to break up some of the monotony of going through certain dungeon areas. Because that's a problem a lot of people have with just dungeon crawler games, like, for example, Persona. It's a very dungeon crawler game, but the only way it breaks up the dungeon crawler games is the character building outside of the dungeons. That's the only way it kind of breaks up the monotony. Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of that it could have really done.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, if they weren't going for puzzles, then don't go for puzzles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do one or the other.
Well, I'm kind of curious about this one for you because you've obviously given it 4. So, what would have gotten it 5 for you?
Well, I don't know. It's more. It's not. It's. I wouldn't say it's more like. It's more that they were good puzzles or anything. It's just that I was kind of more leaning towards the fact that they weren't really a pain in the ass for me. And there were puzzles in the game, obviously, but they were. I enjoyed them for the most part. For the the ones that were in there. I think. I don't know, like kind of what everyone else is touching up on. If they had better puzzles, like, I would have given either more puzzles or better puzzles. Would give me. I would have given it like a 5, but
Fair enough.
they weren't particularly hard, minus the maybe the Sid ones, but at least in the first time I played it, it was a little tricky.
All right.
Yeah, I didn't really say I had too much of a problem with them or.
All right. Okay. Final question for this part. What's your favorite puzzle in the game?
I don't think I even have a favorite puzzle. I mean, I'd probably, I don't know, I'd want to say maybe.
I'd probably say mine is the Pluto Knights.
Yeah, I was going to say either Pluto Knights or the one in Pandemonium, because the
Which
Pluto Knights
one's
one, if you talk to some of the NPCs, you can find out what each like Pluto Knight grouping actually that is good at what particular segment.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of like a
Which
two-parter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
But the Pandemonium one is a lot of trial and error at first to get it just right, just so you can progress.
I realise that I've asked this question and I honestly don't have an answer myself. I think... Yeah, I don't think I could pick one that is my favourite. I like a few. Like, I like the shadow puzzle in Guja's Fortress. And I really like the whole puzzle with the candles in Guja's Fortress. That's kind of the puzzle box of the game, even though there's not too many puzzles in there. That's where a lot of the puzzles are, I think. Right, next category. I can't remember how many we've got left, but this one's music. Now, I think we all kind of are on the same page with this one, but let's see. So, Mindy gave this one 5 Moogles. Michelle gave this one 5 Moogles. Guar gave this one 5 Moogles. Raincore gave this one 5 Moogles. Now, Ape, are you going to break this trend? Ape gets this
Yes.
game. 4 Moogles! Ape! Why not 5?
As good as the music is, I feel like in like a few areas the music could have been better.
Example?
Like Pandemonium in Memoria, it's basically giving you the Pandemonium music again, and then didn't really change upon it. It could have been better. It's just a slightly different take on the Pandemonium music, in my opinion.
But I can't quite think of the example you're giving, but is it like the...
It's literally the final like dungeon area.
But is it
No.
like the menu music and Oliver, like we were talking about earlier, the whole like remix, one of a break word, of it, or is it?
Yeah, it's kind of that, but it's kind of like slowed down and just going in the. I think it's reverse.
Well, I'm
to
sure. I have a feeling Michelle might explain why it's like that. She might know. Is there a reason?
Are we talking about Ibsen's Castle?
No, the music that Abe's talking about.
The Memoria music?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd have to remember exactly which one that is. Because I know when you're going towards the crystals, obviously the crystal song. Let me go play it real quick for myself, and I will come back to you on that.
Okay. Okay, Gua, what does the music do for you, and assumably why you've then given it 5 Moogles? You've sort of talked about it a bit before, but yeah.
I did talk about it a bit before. I think it's the fact that I'm still listening to it today, even while not playing the game, means something. I mean, it definitely touches me in a way where, if I'm stressed and I want to listen to something before bed to kind of relax me, I'm going to be going for the Final Fantasy IX piano collections, or just listening to covers of various pieces from that game. Always brings back good memories. I mean, it's obvious. It's left a lasting impression on me.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Like, there's a lot of tracks in 9 that, although might not listen to them a lot, I know and really like. I used to say, one of the things that I really love about 9, got my favourite fanfare in. I love the 9 fanfare. I realise I didn't talk about this earlier, but that fanfare, I think, because I'm so used to hearing it in, like, even before I started playing 9, because it's Mage's new sub alert sound, because his reoccurring one is the Biggs from the remake doing the fanfare, but his new sub one is that. And from what I remember, when he used to stream on YouTube, if someone subbed, that was his alert, which means therefore, because I've been around since while he was streaming on YouTube, I've heard that music so much that it's sort of gotten ingrained in my head, and I think I do really love the 9 fanfare. Like, the others are great, but there's something about the 9 one that I don't know, I just really love it.
Okay, so I listened to Pandemonium and Memoria. Those were the two you were comparing, right?
Yeah, they sound very similar to me.
Really?
Yeah. I can
Because
actually
one
hear
has
things of
like...
both.
I don't know, because Pandemonium's like the big harpsichordy organ, and then Memoria is just like a pizzicato and voices in the background. They seem very different to me.
It's basically that, even though they're like very different like instruments, I can hear that the same like tones between the two.
Is there a story reason for that, though?
Memoria is supposed to be a reflection of everybody's memories, so it's going to have themes of other songs within it because it's tying together everyone's memories. So it's gonna have Pandemonium. It's gonna have little bits of everything in there, especially since Zidane's there.
But are you just picking out Pandemonium the most? Do you think?
I can sense that more than anything else, though. If that's the main thing I'm picking from it.
Yeah, that's fair
Even
enough.
though there's meant to be more.
Have you listened to them recently?
Areas of that. Yeah.
I think partially also because with Gaia, it's had all these different songs that you've encountered throughout the world, but with Terra you only have like one or two. And if it's trying to show the memories of both worlds, it's not gonna have as much to draw on out of Terra.
But I feel like Terra having this is a really weird tie-in here, but this is my media break coming in. But I feel like Terra having less music kind of works better because on Gaia there's all this variety of people, of humans, of different species, whereas on Terra it's almost like a factory in a weird sort of sense. So there's uniformity, there's not one size fits all, but do you know what I mean? That sort of so I feel like that kind of is good in a way that it's reflected in the music, that there's very little different tracks for Terra. As focused as that point is, and like I said, that's something I've picked up from media, but that sort of analysis, but I think that's maybe not an intended point, but I think it's, I think it ties together well for the story purposes.
Yeah, and I mean, Pandemonium is definitely not my favorite song. I'm just like, it's usually one of the few that I kind of skip. But I can get where they're coming from of like the big bad hits the organ in the bad room and yeah.
Another track that I didn't talk about earlier, and I don't think anyone did, but I love, and I used it for a good while on my starting soon screen, was the Bermissia track. I love that piece of music, and I cannot believe I forgot to talk about it. The torment almost in that track, like, it's good.
Yeah, one of my favourite pieces of music, as much as it is going into Pandemonium, it's literally just before it, is You Are Not Alone, where Zane is basically being all moody.
I love that one.
Erased. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Song's so damn good.
Alright, okay. Because I said I would ask. So, Afe, you said that's your favourite. Guara and Michelle, what's your favourite piece of music in this game?
The Rose of May.
Melody's Alive.
Melody's Alive is a close second, though.
What did you say your first one was, Guara?
And then the he said his was Roses of May, the Beatrix theme song.
Right.
Yeah. My other one is the well, it's basically the Melodies of Life, the world map.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Gets me every fucking time.
Why have it as your starting scene screen then?
I do.
So I'm saying if it gets you, why to get you in the mood for streaming? But I suppose you don't really.
It just gets me as a person.
But do you hear that before you start streaming?
Yeah.
Are you actually? I suppose you're testing the audio levels you stream, because don't you have it as like a media source? So you wouldn't hear it through.
I have it as a media source, so I hear it as well.
Oh, do you? I don't hear my media sources.
I do.
That's weird. Anyway, let's not go down the technical route, but I like that track. That's a really nice piece of music, and I chose that one from the what is it called? The one you use?
The Pontus Holgren one?
Yeah, what are they doing to it?
It's just an orchestrated.
There you go, that's the one. I couldn't quite think of what I was trying to say, but yeah. I'll grab that playlist. Actually, I've still got it in I've got a folder with a load of like stuff in, and that's in there. Let me grab it. But it's a really great playlist. I recommend it, and it's specifically the what's it called? What is the blooming track called? The one from the Overworld theme. Over the Hill. That's it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Also, I think one thing we haven't talked about that. Oh, wrong chat. Sorry, I just posted that in Ainsley's chat. Oops. There we go. Now it's in the right chat. One of the things that I think we haven't touched on that I thought we kind of should is the battle theme. I think it's a really good piece of music, and it's one of those other ones that are like the fanfare. You can kind of compare it, or you end up comparing it to like other battle themes, and I don't know whether it's my favourite, but I do really like it. Also, because of that, the animation going in, I always remember like bopping away to it when the whole fight starting. That always makes me smile at the thought of that.
Oh yeah, it's a motherfucking
Yeah.
bop for sure.
It's not my favorite battle theme. Because I'm more of a retro gamer. I actually prefer 5.
Five's got a good battle theme.
Yeah.
But yeah. So any final points anyone wants to make on music?
Uematsu's a genius.
I agree with
There you
that. I do definitely agree with that. Yeah, I think the music in the game is great, and I think it really helps to invoke the emotion that Michelle was talking about earlier. I think it's really well done. Okay, so the next category, I can't remember which. Oh no, that's not the next category. Well, on to anything else. So any of the points, I think I've got at least one that we haven't brought up, which I think I'll throw the floor out. One thing we've sort of touched on, but we haven't really talked about, Kuja and Trans Kuja, specifically.
Transkuja's badass.
I love,
Yeah.
He's so
Yeah,
fabulous.
I love
Love
his
the
look,
Trans Kuja's
his
theme.
trans look, and his theme as well. The whole package for that fight is so good. Also, I feel like we haven't really talked much about Kuja, like as a villain in a sense, or not as a villain, but just as a character. We haven't really talked much about him. Right? We
I
talked.
mean, I talked about how we have that empathy for him because we know that he doesn't have like the childhood that would have given him access to emotions. So he sees
Yeah.
things as like a kid who laughs at death in Pokemon the first movie while I'm sitting there next to him crying. Like they don't understand it.
Yeah, I feel like though for someone who is throughout the majority of the game the villain, we didn't talk about him as much as I perhaps thought we would. But I do really like Kuja as a villain. Also,
I
what
just want him to wear pants.
is
Yeah.
what is it with
He looks very feminine
Very.
for a villain.
And I'm fine
can-
with the femininity. I just want
Yeah, same.
pants.
It,
just want pants.
it confused me as a kid because I didn't know if he was a girl or a guy.
Yeah. It was the same for me. It was just like, should I be hitting you or trying to stay clear?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Alright, other thing I realised we sort of touched on, we talked about trance as in the mechanic a lot, but in terms of trance appearances, who would you say is your favourite trance appearance? And just
Ooh.
generally your thoughts on
I really
Transit.
like Freya's so much.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Full armor, pretty colors, awesomeness.
I would
Kind
say
of classic
probably,
Dragoon look.
yeah, I'd say Freya or Vivi.
Yeah.
Vivi is really cool too. I like how his
I'm-
hat goes straight up.
I'm torn between 3. Vivi, Freya, and Amaranth.
Fair
I
enough.
will say I hate Garnet's
Yeah.
with a passion. Why did they give her a goddamn thong?
Yeah,
Yes,
they did.
Freya.
Not necessary.
It's just like, what? I guess they tried to emphasize her butt, but still, they don't need to point it out.
Weird.
You don't need to. It's there. You can see
Yeah.
it pretty dang well.
Very well.
Something I want to mention, which it's kind of unintended mechanics because of using randomizers, but something I found really funny when you were doing the randomizer was Garnet when you tried to make her do the attack she's not meant to do, and her model just freaks out. She's like, "What's happening?"
Oh my god, it's the best. It's so great.
Did I mean, you wouldn't have seen that, would you? If I'll find the clip and I'll send it to you. It's quite funny.
I believe I
Well, speaking of
saw it 'cause I've been watching
mechanics-
through it.
I think I put it in the Discord, so you probably did. But yeah,
Speaking of mechanics, something I forgot about or forgot to bring up. I guess it's not really that major. It's just something you notice after the fact, after you're used to playing like PS3, PS4, PS5 games. Is that it takes forever when you get into a battle for the battle to start. Like it has like this long camera pan, and then the battle starts. So I mean, looking back, it could be a little bit of a pain in the ass because of how slow it takes. But something, I'm used to playing older games anyway, so like,
yeah.
Legend Dragoon was kind of slow, but once you kind of get back into them, you don't really notice that much anymore. But it's a slight pain when you go back to like an older game after playing newer ones at first.
Yeah, it's not the worst one though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One game that I can think of that is slightly worse Breath of Fire 4.
Didn't you bring that game up earlier?
I bought up Breath of Fire 3.
Oh.
Yeah. So how is it worse than 4?
Because of how they changed, how they made the world. When instead of making the whole map as like moving back into making that the battle area, they did in 4 they went, because we've made these so claustrophobic we can't do that anymore. They did a whole transition area like screen where they bring the whole adventure map into the middle of the screen, and then it would take forever from that point to get into the actual battle screen, and then you had to wait like 5 seconds later to even input your first command.
I think
That's annoying.
one of the
Yeah.
two things to do with battles I want to bring up. Firstly, I love the battle transition in this game, and it doesn't make me jump sometimes like Tens does, because Tens is so sudden and it's so like almost jump scary that I'm like sometimes I get really thrown off by it. Same sometimes with the World of Final Fantasy one. But the other thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that this game sort of made me sort of learn how to actually fight in RPGs, because I'd somehow gotten Dragon Quest XI onto tactics mode so that the party was fighting for me. And I did that for most of the game. So this game actually, obviously because it's an older game, forcing me to actually play it properly was kind of, was good for me, because I honestly thought, I didn't realise I got it stuck on tactics mode. So when I was playing Dragon Quest XI, it kind of felt like it was meant to be the case, but it also felt weird. But I'd never really questioned it. But like, this game really sort of taught me a lot about actually battles in RPGs. And I think the whole like, I forgot what they're called, but the Moogles that are like where you get the tutorials.
Oh, the monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I really love, that sort of aspect of it. And I like the fact that things unlock gradually in the tutorial, whereas like one of the things that really threw me off when I played 10-2 was you go and speak to Shinra and it's like what? There's just like pages upon pages, like please only let me see what I need, and then as I need more, let me see more.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like, and I said this when I played 10-2, throwing everything at you kind of overwhelms you a bit, and it did for me. Oh, so thank you for the raid. I don't have an alert box on the screen, but thank you for the raid. Welcome on in, everyone. I'm gonna preface this now because I don't want anyone to be annoyed. We are talking about Final Fantasy IX, and we are doing an in-depth review of it. We're coming towards the close of it, but just a warning, we are talking about 9. So if you don't want to be spoiled, leave now. And don't complain if you get spoiled. Yes, we have a Miney, we have a Michelle, we have an Ace, and we have a Guar.
Yes, we do.
Also, I think now I can do this. There we go. It's a bit stretched, but thank you, Sol, for the raid. How was your stream? What were you playing? You were playing some... I read that as Radiator Stories. Radiator?
Radiator Stories. It's a game that never came over to the UK, Miney, but it's really good.
Oh, okay. So I've just mucked up my background image. Well, thank you for the raid, Sol. Hope your stream was well. You Aphis here too. Gross.
Is Radiator Stories about the Cars movies?
Yeah, I was wondering that. Radiator Springs.
God damn it.
Good one.
Yeah, the quest for a new grill.
And the Holy Grill.
Yeah.
Right, one more time. That should be... There we go. Now it's not stretched. But yeah, thank you, Sol, for the raid. Welcome on in, everybody. If you don't know who I am, my name is Manny, Minecart Alliance. I'm a bit of a brand new nightmare. Today we are doing... So, thank you for the wee sub. Today we're doing a Final Fantasy IX roundtable review with... directly above me I've got Guar. Ape, can you do shout out Guar and Merch for me? We've got Guar directly above me with his lovely... I love
Thanks
your...
for raid, but wait, there's more.
Oh, thanks. So, I love your profile picture, Guar. I always have. And then there's over here at the top row we have Michelle. What app was it you used to make that? I've had so many people asking me about the one you made me. Pit Crew, that's it. That's the app that she used to make, and she also made me one, which I used, I think, during June as my profile picture because it had a nice asexual flag. I always keep having to call myself something else. No, I'm asexual. That's what I am.
Yes, you are.
And we also have Afe up here, who I assume some of you know because he mods for The Wonderful Soul. But yeah, and thank you.
Anybody who has a crush on Eighth is Eighth sexual.
Mine is asexual and I'm bisexual.
There you go. Me too.
Sadly, I must run away now for my stream. Now I'm gonna go record my crap, and I'm gonna Renfair. What's that?
Renaissance Fair.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Ren Fair. Have fun, dude.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah,
I miss it.
have fun. Thank you very much for coming in. Tell your co-op partner we said hi, even though they might not know who some of us are. But we said hi. And thank you again, Sol, for the raid. It's very much appreciated. And of course, Abe shout out. So I just went to check and I was like, of course, why am I
Say
even...
hi to MJ for me, Sol.
Michael Jackson's going?
Oh yeah.
Sorry. I don't even know why I did that. Okay, anyway, so again, as a reminder, Final Fantasy IX review, spoilers of everything. We've talked about the final boss in a lot of detail. So if you don't want to be spoiled, leave now or forever hold your peace. That's not quite right, but oh well. So what will
I liked him better once I understood that he was essentially the personification of death. And that was like the central theme throughout the whole game. But as a kid not knowing what he was, it was just like, where did this guy come from? Why am I fighting him?
Yeah, I can understand that. What were we talking about before Sol raided? I think I was talking a bit about...
Just pants?
Yeah, I think I was...
Themes, wasn't it?
I think
Battle transitions.
I was talking about the game sort of teaching me how to actually battle properly. That was what we were talking about, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I do thank the game for that, because it kind of, taught me how to do battles properly. So when it went on to 10 and 7, even though they've got different systems, they was, it was still able to...
The core mechanics were still there.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else got any points they want to bring up here?
No, it's pretty good.
We all good? Mash?
We all good?
Right, I'm going to take a moment now and I'm going to read you Tele's points. Now, again, as I should emphasise, Tele is strongly against this game. And I want to read in detail just what she said, because I didn't really do that too much throughout the actual review. So she says, so what this review structure was, everyone had to give 3 dislikes, 3 likes, and then we went through a series of categories. I haven't got those ratings for Tele, but then also we're just talking now about anything else, and then we're going to give a conclusion of ratings out of 10 in a minute. But I just want to go through what Tele said, who is another person you'll probably know from Soul's community, if you don't know her. Tele said, and we touched upon this earlier, that she doesn't like the art style. It's way too cartoonish, and she has difficulty looking at it. She says the characters are once again far too cartoonish, and they fall into too many cliches. I read the bit about the plot, so I'm not going to read it again because it's quite long. But wait, did I? Oh yeah, I did read that.
I mean, you did. Did you?
Hey Johnny, yeah, I read that part. So she says, I've tried multiple times to give this game a chance.
Oh, yeah.
Multiple of Major's LPs of it. I'd watched a few episodes, but every time I just find myself absolutely unable to continue watching it. Even watching from Mage, I can't force myself to do it. And then she says things that she found redeemable. Well, number 1 was Vivi. Number 2, the matte paintings they used as backgrounds were made in different resolutions too. Up to and including 8K, which for a 2000 game is highly impressive and basically meant that they could re-release the game without the same backgrounds as tech improved. Wait, change that to a dislike. And then she says, thirdly, though I dislike the game and frankly would rather play FF9, which barely qualifies as a game, the fact that it has such a cult following, however misguided, and a deep love and appreciation to the point of being able to constantly play it and even do multiple playthroughs, cough mage cough, and it still draw new views and attention and whatnot. It's impressive to say and says a lot about the game, even though I personally dislike it. Even if I personally dislike it. She also added a bonus point saying the fact I get to mess with people who love it is pretty fun.
I don't think I've ever met someone who hated Final Fantasy IX that much.
Yeah, and all critiques and jokes aside, it's got a very impressive lifespan and effect on people, even more so it feels than FF7, which is regarded as one of the best games of all time by many. So yeah. All right.
Personally call it overrated. But still.
Let me ask you guys this before we sort of go into conclusions of rate out of 10, without sort of spoiling your ratings. Where does this game rank for you? I think I know Michelle's answer to this, but where does this rank for you in the Final Fantasy series?
In all of the game series ever, it's number 1 for me.
Okay.
For me, it's number 4.
Okay. Why 4?
For me, it's number 1. So.
Okay. For me, it's also number 1. I feel like 8th is sort of the balancer. He's very much the balancer here. But
yeah, 5 for me is what I like the most. Then 12, then 10, then it comes to 9.
Fair enough.
I mean, 5 is damn good.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying 5 from what I'm playing, but I need to pick that back up. I haven't played any in ages. I think the last time I played was around the time we recorded 8th.
Let's say like it would be 9, 12, and 6 for me.
Fair enough.
I honestly don't like 6. I don't like it at all.
Oh, that's not good. I'm going to be starting
I don't
6
have
soon.
enough of an opinion on it.
I'll be honest. 9 is the only Final Fantasy game that I absolutely love. 12 is high up there for me. 6 is kind of up there for me. The rest are just like meh for me. I still enjoy them. I still play them. But ever since I got into the Dragon Quest series, that's like everything is held to that kind of standard now, for me at least.
So you're kind of the opposite of me, whereas I've tried a few Dragon Quest games, but I've found myself hooked more on Final Fantasy. You're kind of the opposite, would you say?
Kind of, yeah. It was weird though, because I was a Final Fantasy fan first, and then once I kind of got into Dragon Quest, I realized, in terms of my opinion, my tastes, it was just a better series overall. But even then, like, Final Fantasy 9 still, is up high on my list, even after I've played every other Dragon Quest game. It's just, I think it still holds up to this day. It's still a really good, enjoyable game. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's really the only one I feel strongly about in the Final Fantasy series, minus not counting spin-offs or anything like that.
Yeah, whereas I'm not deeply tied to like Final Fantasy in general. I'm just a general lover of RPGs. But I will say I prefer RPGs that are made by other people.
Yeah,
Square.
You had the whole debate in the 18-hour stream about Square versus non-Square, and you were against Square. Well, not against it, but you were arguing that against Square. Not, I don't know what I can't, because I was at AFK. What stance did you take really during that debate?
I was more like, as good as Square can make RPGs, I feel like other RPG companies can make better games in general when it comes to story progression, character growth, and generally feeling for like the bad guys that you meet across the way. It generally pulls you into the game more. This is the main reason why I prefer Grandia over any Final Fantasy game.
Fair enough. What is your opinion? Obviously, Michelle said hers, and we know that it's Michelle's favourite game of all time. For me, I'm not sure if it would. It's up there for me, but I don't know if I have a favourite game of all time. Like, it's hard for me to pick. 9's definitely up there. Among Us is up there. Not so much for the game, more just the friends and the networking it allowed me to do, like meeting people like Proxy, for example. Even as she threw me under the bus royally on that one time. But yeah, it's one of those games that, and as well, I think I met some really nice people like Andy and Moth. Andy doesn't really come into streams too much anymore, but Moth is becoming part of the Discord. She's boosted the Discord, which I really appreciate, and she's always around in streams every so often, and that's nice. It's nice to have.
I met you through Among Us, funny enough.
Yep, through Panda's birthday. But like, I think there's a few others that I've met through 9, but sometimes you forget like where you meet certain people. Like I know Misty came in Dragon Quest 11, for example. But yeah, for me, this game is just it was my first Final Fantasy game, and I think it left. I'm about to say left a lot to be desired, but that's more of a negative phrase. It was a good introduction to the series, and until now it hasn't been topped. Like 7, I always say 7 very closely pips it to the post, but well, no, it's very closely pipped to the post by 7. Just, I should point out, 7 is very high up, but it's 9. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a first thing, but I just prefer 9 over 7. Just like I say, there's a lot of things I love about 7. Okay, so time for the final conclusions and ratings. So the way how I'm going to do this, if I show you, basically there's a sort of leaderboard. My rating will come up, it's a 9, but you know it now. But what I'm going to say is that you say your conclusion, and then you say something along the lines of, and that is what I'm going to give this game. And then as you say your number, I will click the slide forward to, you know what I mean? So then, make it clear to me that you are going to say the number so I don't reveal it on screen too early, if that makes sense. Which I think is... Yeah.
Yeah.
Right then. So, I mean, you already know mine's a 9 because I showed it off. But basically, mine's a 9 because I love the game. I think it's a really, really well done game. The music's great. The gameplay's great. The puzzles are alright. Part of the reason why it's a bit lower. Also, I think there was a sort of... Even though I'm over it, the bad taste that I felt at the beginning of the game still, you know, it kind of leaves a bad thing in your mind, even though I'm over all that stuff now that I felt when I first played it. Like, I remember when I first played the game, I was moaning that it was too confusing the way they kept switching between characters. But now I look back at that and I'm like, I love it. Also, I realised something I didn't talk about. The scenes where they're doing the shrines, the way that cuts between them, and that whole scene, that was the moment for me where I fell in love with this game. That bit where they're all going to different shrines, I don't know why, but that bit was where I really sort of fell in love with this game. It's not a 10 because of, like I said, the thing about the puzzles, the ability system. If I took some time to learn it, I might be better at it. I probably would be, but yeah. And overall, I think it's a great game, but like, there's a few things that kind of... I think it's very rare for me that I would give something a 10. As much as I love the game, you know, it's... And I would be willing to go into points, but I don't think it's quite 9.1 or anything higher than that. I think 9 is the comfortable point where I put it. So, yeah. Maybe it will go up slightly when I learn the ability system, but as it stands, I would give it a 9. So, Michelle, your conclusion and rating, if you're please.
Yeah, so, with 9, it's just, it has such an emotional connection with me throughout my entire life. It's, and I said this when I beat the game during the race, was just, it really inspired me. I grew up with it. The music had me playing violin, so music's become a very big part of my life. It's something that my husband and I bonded over early on, and that really kind of formed a good part of our relationship. And now we've been married for 4 years, and I got to meet Uematsu, and it was my first cosplay, and it's really just what I want JRPGs to be. So it will always be my comparison point. I mean, sure, 9 isn't perfect. It, you know, there's Amaranth and there's other things that we've talked about, but I will always compare any other game to it. It is my top tier, which is why you know what my number's gonna be. It's gonna be that 10.
Ooh, a 10.
Yep, Michelle gave it a 10 after I told her that it was out of 10, not 5. Every single one of you had like a slightly different issue with the ranking out of 10, and I'm like, why was I not clearer? Like, I thought I was clear, but apparently I wasn't, given every single one of you came back to me with something different. Yeah, you didn't notice it. Gua totaled all of the categories up. Michelle gave me a score out of 5, and Raincore... What was it? Raincore that gave me a score out of 5? I can't remember, but... Yeah, anyway.
I just assumed you would add up the numbers yourself.
Yeah. You just said your final score, so I didn't know what that meant. I thought this meant like added up and like
Did you read the summary and not?
37 out of 50 or whatever it was.
Did you read that from the summary that I posted rather than the full thing?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I pinned the full thing. Oh well.
Yeah,
But you
that
had,
doesn't mean I won't
the,
read
you had
it.
the summary right there, though, so why?
Yeah.
All right. It was my fault. I accept responsibility. Okay. Next up would be Gua.
I'm just gonna make this short and sweet. I mean, the game, the story was awesome. The music was awesome. And the music can still make me think back to points in the game. But I ended up giving it a 9 out of 10.
Fair enough. Okay, Raincore, I would say, gives the game a 9 as well. I can't remember if he gave me some points, but I can't remember if he specifically explained why it was a 9 in... Let me check. Yeah, he didn't say specifically why he would give it a 9 rather than a 10. But yeah, you've heard some of Raincore's points today. He's dealing with annoying people via phone, so he can't sadly be here right now. But yeah. Okay, and finally, is he going to break the pattern again? Eighth! Your conclusion?
Maybe. We'll soon find out. Yeah, the music is really great. The story, well, not the greatest in my opinion, is fine. It's the visuals, well, some of the like hand-drawn like stills are a little bit blurry when they go in the game. Look amazing, but when it comes to like the character growth for some of the characters, it drags it away from it for me. So that's why I've just decided to give it a 7 out of 10.
Ooh. But Eighth, this is Final Fantasy 9. You're supposed to give it a 9.
Yeah.
7's high.
Yeah, it's
Considering how
Well,
many
it's-
JRPGs there are there.
Yeah.
it's not the worst. But there's just a few parts of it that pull it away from being closer to that really high exceptional game for me.
Fair enough. I think this sort of reflects sort of what I was expecting, that Michelle loves the game. Me, Guar, and Raincore, we love it, but it's not like love. We love it. And then Abe's kind of that balance. It's funny actually, when I first messaged Tele to ask her if she wanted to be part of the review, I was like, personally, we're all wet about the game and we need someone to balance it out. But I think, as weird as that statement sounds, I think it is true. We all really love the game. Some of us more than others. Mentioning no names. But, yeah. I was like, that whole thing feels a bit awkward now saying that, but oh well, I've said it. One other thing I will say, speaking of music and speaking of Michelle's violin skills, and I'm going to plug this because why the hell not? She plugged me in her stream. Tomorrow at what time? Is it your normal stream time?
3:30 p.m. EST.
Yeah, so because you normally start. Do you start at 8 normally? Not 8, 3 normally on Sundays.
3:30.
Oh yeah, we start at 30:30, don't you? I'm going mad. Yeah, so 3:30 p.m. Eastern, which is 8:30 GMT, BST, sorry. Tomorrow, Michelle will be doing a closet cosplay concert with, is it 7 Music you're doing?
Yeah, Final Fantasy 7.
So yeah, if you want to go along and watch that, go watch her cosplay as Aerith, which I think, from what I've seen, another picture she posted, is it going to be like the one you did for Valentine's Day?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she looked good that day, so yeah. Also, Michelle always looks
My
good in
favourite
red.
character from 7, by the way.
Hmm?
Aerith, my favourite. Character
she's
from
great.
7.
She's great.
Hello.
Also, you always look good in red, so you look good on your
Oh,
Thursday.
thanks.
You do. But anyway, yeah. So go watch that. Someone could do Michelle's shout out link or just shout her out again. Michelle's great. You should really go watch her. Guar's content's great as well. Guar streams on Twitch. He's taken a bit of a break, but you're kind of coming back now, aren't you, mate?
Yeah, I'm trying to get back. I'm still busy, but I'm trying to get back into it.
Yeah. Guar's also Eastern, so expect him sort of like 6:30ish onwards Eastern is usually when you stream, ain't it? Like in the afternoon, apart from weekends, of course.
Yeah.
Ace wants to stream at some point, so by all means go follow him.
But if I get but if I get this the job that I had an interview for yesterday, and I've got a test today on Monday, I might not have the time to.
And
So we'll see.
finally,
That's valid. Full-time jobs and streaming is a lot.
Yeah.
yeah, and finally, Raincore, of course, who has been in and out tonight. I'll say tonight for you in the US. It's still like what
4:30 right now.
4:30. Okay, yeah, I can't do maths, I promise. But yeah, and again, also, I am Miney. I say this specifically because there's been a raid. I'm Miney. If you like what you see here, we don't do this too often. This is a trial, so let me know what you guys thought about this because I really enjoyed doing this. I've got we're starting to get that group together for 10, so hopefully at some point soon there will be one of these for Final Fantasy 10. Hopefully that'll go as well, and hopefully next time I'll explain better about the final ranking. When I like rain.
It's not that bad. We're
I know.
good.
I know.
Don't go too hard on yourself.
I know, I'm not beating myself up. It just made me laugh because, like, Raincore sent me and I was like, oh, okay, Raincore didn't understand it. And then Michelle sent me it and I was like, oh, Michelle didn't understand it either. And I was like, then Gua sent me his and I was like, okay, maybe I didn't explain this well enough. But yeah, it also made me laugh, sis, when you said about the whole, like, you were confused by it. I'm like, you helped me come up with this. Like, this was part of your idea, this system.
Dude, I have a memory of a goldfish.
That's
Y'all know
what.
that.
That's what I said. I was like, which I remember.
Well, I'm a mermaid.
But yeah, thank you everyone for coming along. We should find somebody to raid, unless anyone else has any final point. Or I'll let you guys say some final points, but I'm gonna see who's on while you guys are.
Can we raid Jack?
I was thinking about it. I just want to check if there's anybody else.
My final point is give it a try if you haven't. The art style might not be exactly what you want, but the other parts of it more than make up for it.
If Money likes it, then you know it's good.
Wow. I heard there was this thing that happened in Proxy Stream where they were like, Money's so unpredictable when it comes to games, and I'm like, wow, thanks guys. I wasn't even there, and you guys are talking about me. And I'm like, okay, I see how it is. But yeah, before we go, I want to say thank you very much to Soul for the raid. Thank you very much to, Jesus Christ, this is big today, Spice FE, Agent Nicolay, Jacobox, Jacoby Plays, Future Spidey, Gua, Kizwan, Legend Addy 96, Awkward Gamer, Afe Michelle, Dizzying Spinster, Imoki, John, Sol, Kim, Bask, and Calandra for the Osho host / raids. They are very much appreciated. And they do happen to support the channel. And thankfully, no, Grandpa God did not go too far this time. But yeah, let's go ahead and raid Jack. I want to say again a massive thank you to all of my, let's say, contributors. Or like contributors like the news. You are kind of contributors. You contributed to this. But yeah, thank you everyone for, all four of you, for, well, I say all four, Raincore's not here, but yeah, thank you for taking the time out to do this, and thank you for doing the prep work as well. I know that's...
It was super fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for